Good morning. If I could get everyone to please have a seat, we're going to get started. How's your mother? Oh, great. Awesome. Good morning.
Coordinators are here with their person, so you can just read it right along.
Good morning. Welcome to the Henry County Board of Commissioners, 9 a.m. Tuesday, October 4th, 2022 regular scheduled board meeting. Okay, so whoever's out there in the hallway, would y'all please tell them to quiet it down or shut the door. We're going to begin this morning with the invocation by Pastor Carter, the Henry County from the Henry County Sheriff's Office, and he will also lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Pastor Carter. If everyone would stand.
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, we come now to say thank you for this moment. God, we ask your blessings be upon us as we share in the business of Henry County, the place we call God's country. Lord, bless us now that we're able to deliberate with the spirit of peace. God, allow us to serve humanity and serve humanity well, considering all things. Thank you for affording our commissioners the seats in which they're sitting. Allow them to be moved by their personal convictions, God, that's leaning for your glory. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to call our meeting to order. We're going to begin this morning with proclamations. We've got a proclamation recognizing the Henry County Chamber of Commerce. It's a worthy commendation having received the 2022 National Chamber of the Year Award. If I could have Nicholas Ivy come forward.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners.
Before you get started, where's the chamber at? Okay. Can you guys come and stand up here, please? Our Executive Director, Joe Henning.
All right. We have a proclamation recognizing the Henry County Chamber of Commerce being named National Chamber of the Year 2022. It reads, whereas the Henry County Chamber of Commerce has been named Chamber of the Year by the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, and whereas the award recognizes excellence in financial performance, partner retention, organizational strength, and impact on the community in areas such as education, transportation, business development, and quality of life. And whereas there are approximately 7,000 chambers in the United States, with more than 1,300 chambers globally represented by the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, and whereas because of its comprehensive evaluation process, the award reflects the challenging work, dedication, and collaborative effort of many people throughout Henry County, and whereas we appreciate the Henry County Chamber of Commerce for its work which continues to expand our economy by attracting and retaining jobs in the region. Now therefore be proclaimed that the Henry County Board of Commissioners recognizes the Henry County Chamber of Commerce as the best of the best in their industry, having been awarded the 2022 National Chamber of the Year Award and congratulates its board of directors, staffs, and partners for being recognized accordingly by the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives.
And Board, if you could stay up, we have a few more proclamations because you have down. Thank you.
Stephanie, what's the next proclamation?
Next proclamation is recognizing October as Anti-Bullying Awareness Month.
All right. Recognizing October as Bullying Prevention Month. Whereas bullying is a physical, verbal, sexual, or emotional harm or intimidation intentionally directed at a person or group of people, and whereas bullying occurs in neighborhoods, playgrounds, schools, and online through technology, and whereas various researchers have concluded that bullying is the most common form of violence affecting millions of American children and adolescents annually, and thousands of Georgia children and adolescents are affected by bullying every year. And whereas targets of bullying are at increased risk for depression, anxiety, sleep difficulties, lower academic achievement, and dropping out of school, and students who are repeatedly bullied often fear such activities as riding the bus, going to school, interacting online, and attending community activities. And whereas children who are bullied are at greater risk of engaging in more serious violent behaviors, and children who witness bullying often feel less safe, helpless to stop it, and intimidated to act. Now, therefore, it be it proclaimed that the Henry County Board of Commissioners recognizes October as National Bullying Prevention Month in Henry County and encourages parents, teachers, mentors, and community leaders to take a stand against bullying in order to safeguard our young people and help them grow in a positive and nurturing environment. Be it further proclaimed that Georgia schools, students, parents, recreation programs, religious institutions, businesses, and community organizations be encouraged to engage in a variety of awareness and prevention activities designed to make our community safer for all children and adolescents. Okay, oh yeah, okay.
Next proclamation is a proclamation recognizing October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
We would invite anyone who would like to come up for the breast cancer awareness picture to please come up. We have Human Resources team member Mashara Morel Sharp, who will accept the proclamation on behalf of her mother and all those affected by breast cancer. So we have a proclamation recognizing the month of October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas every year, too many Americans are touched by the pain and hardship caused by breast cancer, and it's estimated that 281,550 women and more than 2,650 men are expected to be diagnosed with breast cancer by the end of 2022. And whereas breast cancer is the second most common form of cancer found in women in the United States and the second leading cause of cancer death overall among American women, with more than 43,000 lives lost each year. And whereas many people have endured the heartbreak of losing someone to breast cancer, and it's the memories of those loved ones that drive us to find a cure. However, thanks to early detection and improved treatment options, death from breast cancer has significantly decreased in the last decade. Whereas all women are encouraged to talk to their healthcare providers about mammograms and other methods of early detection, as well as their risk of developing breast cancer and what can be done to reduce that risk. And by raising awareness of breast cancer and supporting research, prevention, and early detection so that we will move closer to eradicating this disease. Now, therefore, it be proclaimed by the Henry County Board of Commissioners that the month of October is designated as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we urge all Henry County residents to spread awareness of this disease, provide support for those affected by this illness, and educate others on its prevention and early detection. Yeah, we got one more.
Next proclamation is Proclamation claiming September the 15th through October 15th as Hispanic Heritage Month. I believe we have representatives from Georgia National's Hispanic Heritage Alliance with us today.
All right, we have a proclamation recognizing September 15th through October 15th as Hispanic Heritage Month. It reads, whereas each year Americans observe National Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th to October 15th by celebrating the histories, cultures, and contributions of American citizens whose ancestors come from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central and South America. And whereas the observation started in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under President Lyndon Johnson, then expanded by President Ronald Reagan in 1988 to cover a 30-day period, which was enacted into law on August 17, 1988. And whereas we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month to recognize the achievements and contributions of Hispanic American champions who have inspired others to achieve success and to acknowledge their many contributions that have helped shape our nation. And whereas this year's theme for Hispanic Heritage Month is Unidos, inclusivity for a stronger nation. Because diversity is strength and we celebrate the contributions of Hispanic and Latino communities to the culture, the economy, and the future of our nation, now therefore it be proclaimed that the Henry County Board of Commissioners recognize September 15th through October 15th as Hispanic Heritage Month in Henry County and encourages all residents to acknowledge, appreciate, embrace, honor, and celebrate their traditions and contributions, not only during Hispanic Heritage Month, but all throughout the year.
Thank you, Nicholas, for reading all of those proclamations for us. We're going to begin with some presentations. The Henry County Employee Retirement Recognition. Mashar.
Good morning, Madam Chair and distinguished board members. I am honored to present our two newest retirees of Henry County. Okay, first we have Miss Joy Bridges, 23 years of service with Henry County Senior Services. And And next we have Andrea Holland, 15 years of service with the Henry County Sheriff's Office. We thank them for serving with dedication and integrity with Henry County. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is classification and compensation study update. We have our HR Director, Harold Cooper.
Good morning, Madam Board Chair, Madam Vice Chair, distinguished board members. I stand before you today with my esteemed teammate, Ms. Callie Colaccio, who is our designee as it relates to classification and compensation. She serves as an HR specialist with Henry County. So today, we're going to give you a brief overview, and I know at times that's a daunting task for yours truly, in relationship to Evergreen Solutions and our wages and salary administration known as our classification and compensation study. The first step in this process was the data collection process. August 22nd, HR put together our job class master file, our organizational charts, our pay scales, our relevant classification and compensation policies, and provided them to Evergreen Solutions. In addition to that, we also conducted an employee survey to gauge their interest in the classification and compensation study. 347 employees participated in that survey. 194 of those employees stated that they wanted to have focus groups with the consulting firm, which is about 56% of the survey population. Assessments of our current condition. Based on Evergreen's preliminary assessment of where we are right now, we definitely know that there's going to be a revision in terms of our pay plan and salary distribution. Issues associated with our pay plan is that it's narrow in terms of the range spreads, and also when it comes to salary distribution, we have about 87% of our employees that fall below the midpoint or in the first quartile of their pay range, and this could potentially cause pay compression issues as it relates to salaries across the board for our employees. Evergreen Solutions came September 13th. They stayed through September 15th during this initial assessment of our current conditions. And as a result of that, they conducted what we call 3 employee orientations. 2 in the morning of September 13th, 1 in the evening. Also, the second orientation was recorded, so we were able to send that to all employees if they were not able to participate in the orientation process. There were a total of 230 employees who attended the orientation in person. At this time, I'll yield to Callie so she can speak more specifically about the employee engagement and outreach piece. Callie.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, board members. My name is Callie Colaccio. I'm an HR specialist in the Department of Human Resources. Over the last few weeks, I've been working very closely with Evergreen on the employee outreach phase of our study. Evergreen was here Tuesday, September 13th through Thursday, September 15th to conduct a series of in-person focus groups. They also sent out an employee outreach survey to try to target those employees who may not have been able to attend in person. We had 35 focus groups with a total of 200 participants, and then we had 568 employees complete that outreach survey. The focus groups and the outreach survey did include the same question, and some of those questions were why employees chose to come work for Henry County, why they remain employed with Henry County, what they know about our current compensation system, if they feel our salaries are competitive, how they feel about current raises, incentives, and pay grade assignments within the county, and what their classification concerns are. So So with our summary of employee outreach, some of the reasons that employees gave us that they came to work for Henry County and that they remain working in Henry County are location, job security, work enjoyment, benefits and retirement, and their coworkers. While most of our employee feedback was positive, we did have some areas of concern that we're going to have to look for recommendations on. Some of our areas of concern and compensation are that less than half of survey participants stated that they're only somewhat familiar with our current compensation system. 30% of employees stated they have little to no knowledge of our current compensation system. 82% of participants feel that our county salaries are not competitive. 60% stated they feel raises, incentives, and pay grade assignments are not fair or equitable among employees or departments. And then one major area of concern is they did see some pay compression between new and tenured employees. And some of our classification areas of concern are that many participants feel that job descriptions do not accurately capture their roles and responsibilities. Many employees feel that an area of concern is that our job titles are generic job titles that don't capture what they do. And then employees feel like it would benefit the organization to add tiers in job classes so that they see more career progression. Once again, our overall feedback was positive. These are issues that many organizations have. Classification and compensation requires constant, timely review in order to remain competitive. So the next phase of our employee outreach that we are currently in is the job assessment tool, or the JAT. The job assessment tool was sent out by Evergreen on Monday, September 19th. Employees had 2 weeks to complete that survey. The JAT gathers information on day-to-day tasks, the equipment required for your job, and the environment your job is done in, things like that. This is going to help Evergreen gather the data that they need to see if we're classifying our employees correctly, compensating them correctly, and if our job descriptions are accurate. And I will add that yesterday, as of 9 a.m., we did have just a little over 1,000 employees who completed the job assessment tool. The job assessment tool is currently under supervisor review, and they will have until the end of the week to review their employees' job assessment tools. Okay, so one thing I do want to stress is that we are still heavily in the data collection phase of the study, so we have not received any recommendations yet. We've just received what the comments were and what we're going to look for recommendations on. So HR meets with Evergreen officials each Friday to stay abreast of any progress made in the study, and the next phase of the study will be the market data study, and this will be where our classification and compensation is compared with 21 other government municipalities. So we just started that last week. Okay? So we will yield for any questions now.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Any questions from the board?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we will have a presentation regarding Henry County Sheriff's Office budgetary needs from our sheriff, our original Scandrat.
Good morning, Madam Chair and distinguished board members. I certainly thank you guys for the opportunity to come before you this morning to talk about what we consider to be an emergency time frame with respect to the functions of the Henry County Sheriff's Office. More specifically, at this point, we are at the total capacity of what we can hold inside of the Henry County Jail is 892. Our current ADP, which is average daily population, is approximately now 992. Some of our specific concerns with respect to that is that we contracted, particularly with respect to food and medical services, we contracted for 750 inmates. And so we are approximately at this point with a difference of about 242. So immediately we are getting invoices for additional payments and suggestions for making sure that we at least look at the contract that we did previously to give it an additional review for changes and adjustments. So we wanted to take a moment this morning to take a deeper dive with respect to categorically some of our concerns and show you where we are overall for an overall understanding so that we can have a deeper discussion with respect to the same. So I'm going to bring up to support our Chief Deputy, Chief Yarbrough, and also Dr. William Brickhouse subsequently as well.
Good morning. So as you see by this graph above, what I want to do is give you a strategic overview real quickly of our problem and needs assessment and not go too deep into the numbers, but if you're looking from 2017 through our current dates of 2022, we have seen a progression of 30% increase in our average daily population that will go through 2024. So by 2024, we can be as much as 382 inmates over our capacity in our current jail. This here is a chart to show you our bookings and our releases. And as you see, we have 78% fewer released than we have actually coming in, increasing our population. 34% increase in the bookings over the last 7 months as compared to the previous 6 months. And we have a large 55% increase in bookings comparing August of 2022 to 2021. This is a population by category, revealing that we are at about 59% state and superior court inmates waiting proceedings and 22% with violations of probation for misdemeanor and felonies. As we move into what these increases are causing for us, obviously the inmate housing is impacted, one of the greatest, as well as our staffing. So we require and need immediately a structure that can have a capacity of at least 150 inmates over the next couple of months, as well as a new jail pod constructed. Consistently with this increase of going from 750 to pushing that 1,000 number, that's a 33% increase in what our food vending and services are costing us. If we do not look at very quickly the capacity being addressed for our inmate population increase, what we are going to see is the potential for housing out our inmates at a cost of at least $85 per day per inmate, with 100 persons going outward would be a $3.1 million annual cost to the county.
Good morning. I am Dr. William Brickhouse, and I'm a psychological mental health consultant for the Henry County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff has asked me to offer a brief description about myself before presenting several bullet points, observations to the Commissioners. I'm a licensed psychologist. I have 40 years of correctional mental health experience. This includes directing psychological services for the Massachusetts Department of Correction, 21 years of directing a jail mental health program, and experience serving as a Georgia Juvenile Justice Clinical Director. I have successful experience with the combined 13 NCCHC and ACA jail accreditation reviews, and I offer risk management reviews to eliminate legal risk and grounds for legal suits. I have 5 bullet points to share with the Commissioner this morning. These observations have previously been shared with the Sheriff and his command staff. The current jail staffing for mental health services is marginally sufficient. The current staffing consists of 1 day for a psychiatrist on site, 1 mental health counselor full-time, and a mental health nurse. This limit on staffing coverage relates to the lower ADP at the jail at the time of the original contract was bid. Jails have become the replacement location for state hospital patients, given the closure of state facilities, and all 50 states have seen the increase of mental health patients in their jail populations. The mental health population in Henry County Jail, based on a recent count, is currently 20% of the ADP, average jail population. But this fluctuates to 25% given the influence of substance abuse as a co-occurring disorder. Needed resources for mental health care include one additional mental health counselor, another day of psychiatric coverage for 4 to 8 hours, and mental health programs to develop and address discharge planning and diversion, and counseling support during incarceration. The Henry County Jail was not constructed with the needs of mental health inmates in mind. This means that the current jail has a deficiency with respects to housing classification capability to separate mental health inmates from general population inmates. The Sheriff's Office, the jail, has 2 options to address this deficiency. The first option, which we are looking at presently, includes the identification of current housing locations for medical step-down and mental health housing. This may include the need for some retrofitting. The sheriff, I believe, has included another building option included in the package he has submitted to the county commissioners, which would provide a long-term solution for this deficiency. I thank you for your attention.
So as we see with our ADP, as it's increasing, or the average daily population, and it's exponentially doing so throughout the next couple of years based upon our projections. Also impactors are COVID-19 and other communicable diseases that we have to address each and every day. So supplies, equipment, and resources to apply to that to make our inmates as well as our staffing safe, including upgrades to our HVAC system as well as mobile filtration systems throughout the jail. Consistently, as you see, as numbers go up, we also have to deal with the staffing increases that will be necessary. From detention officers, deputy sheriffs, civilian support personnel, we're looking at approximately 42 new detention officers over the next several months, 10 deputy sheriffs for regular duties to commensurate with what we're addressing mandated, as well as a 4 deputy sheriff transportation system that will be required, and 12 civilian support professionals to make sure that we are able to accommodate all of our needs. As Dr. Brickhouse has let us see a little bit into that mental health capacity, our mental health facilities have to be upgraded as well, as spoken about, to make sure that we separate our population according to the crisis and treatment categories necessary within the jail, which we are not currently at the level that we need to be. An inmate transport van sounds simple, but as the population has grown up towards about 33% over our average, we're still consistently traveling and transporting to courts, to medical facilities, mental health facilities, other facilities throughout, and it taxes our system greatly. Lastly, what I'll speak about is the video monitoring equipment throughout our jail and court system and the potential for our new facilities that we bring on board. Very importantly is that we replace, repair, and enhance these, and make sure that with our increased footprint that we are addressing our safety, security, and public health capabilities. Public health is actually addressed with the video monitoring equipment via some of the ability to check temperatures through the system, population, as well as the density of our persons inside cells and areas of the court to ensure that we have separation accommodated as well. Thank you.
So from a more recent historical context, in 2019, the SPOS funding for the new jail pod addition, there was some banter and conversation that went back and forth in a meeting here. And the resolution number 19-163 for a $10 million project that was on the table. In addition to that, on July the 29th, 2019, SPOS Workshop, the project on discussion list, approved list no longer included the jail part. On the same date, the resolution number 19-204 a project no longer listed as a project for the 2019 SPLOST referendum to be approved by voters. And it was subsequently moved or suggested that it be moved to a capital improvement plan over a 5-year period of approximately $6 million. If you're looking in the overall historical context, you'll see that over the years, as the Henry County Sheriff's Office and county has increased in numbers, the call volume has increased. The warrants have increased. We have approximately 8,000 plus warrants now that we're dealing with and attacking aggressively. And all of the municipalities and the police departments are also doing an outstanding job with respect to aggressively attacking crime. In addition to that, we have our newly police department, which is the Stockbridge Police Department, and they are doing the same. And as those numbers have increased, Henry County, and I'm telling you what you already know, Henry County is one of the fastest growing counties in the nation. We will not go south. This will continue to go north with respect to our population, and more specifically with respect to the numbers that we are incarcerating inside of our jail. And so you see over the years since 1991 that we have pretty much piecemeal the need for increase to make sure we accommodate accordingly our inmate staff and staffing from a Henry County overall perspective. From a deeper dive, in 1991, the original jail had 174 at capacity, and the transition was made for the need for new or additional added beds at 143. And then we went into 2007 of the building phases and office spaces of additional 4 parts. Mind you, all of these years, the numbers are increasing with respect to the people that are moving to Henry County. May 9th, 2013, a G-Part proposal and other improvements came before the Board of Commissioners with respect to the challenge that they had at that particular time frame, which strongly resembles the conversation that we're having now. In 2019, what we just talked about, the 2019 SPLOST projects and jail pods were removed, and then jail pod added to capital improvement for 2020, I think it was February of 2020, for additional discussions, and then it just sort of faded to black at that time frame. This, again, I want to repeat this by being purposely redundant. This will not go south. Again, it will continue to go north. The funds that we are requesting right now, what we consider to be right now funds with respect to the medical increase, the food increase, staffing increase, and outside housing of inmates, we're going to be approximately $9 million in terms of right now funding. The subsequent funding with respect to erecting a structure that will house or accommodate the inmates of our growth that we are encountering is going to, at the time frame that it was suggested in 2019, was about $10 million. I suspect that that's going to be subsequently different now, significantly different now due to construction costs. But as a base, we will utilize the $10 million reference point. So we're looking at around $17 to $20 million is what we're looking at in terms of the immediate need. But more recent need in terms of operation of our overage right now, we're looking at approximately $9 million that we're in immediate need of to ensure that we can accommodate the prior reference point. I will yield back at this time for any questions, concerns, or comments with respect to the same.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to ask staff to come forward and to address the concerns in the document that was sent out. Who is going to do that?
So I'm sure it's going to be our financial services group, David Smith.
Okay. Okay.
Are there any questions from the board at this
We're
time?
going to wait. I want to address the document first.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, as David is approaching, David is going to be providing a response based on the documentation that the sheriff sent over to the Board of Commissioners outlining what his needs are. Okay. So I just want to make sure, as a point of reference for the board, they understand what David is responding to.
So does everyone have this document here that was sent to us via email?
If not, while he's presenting, I'll get copies made.
Okay, let's make sure that everyone has a copy of this document. Yes.
Loading on our computer currently.
Okay.
Can't do it.
Okay, so we'll make sure that everyone gets this here.
Thank you.
We're getting copies made.
Okay.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Commissioners, and Henry County community. I have prepared a response, or responses, to the Sheriff's memorandum that he sent to the Commissioners, and I'm going to respond to those, but as always, I like to begin with a preamble. And I want to remind the Commissioners that on more than one occasion, this particular board has reminded me of a fiduciary duty to protect our financial strength of the county and continue with the same level of support to our citizens in this county. I've worked hard to fulfill that responsibility. We face revenue constraints that put our ability to continue at this level of support at risk, and as you heard, this $17 million to $20 million request would certainly put all of that at risk. We've taken steps to prepare for a potential recession. As you heard in this presentation, there's nothing that will prepare us for this recession. But we have built an emergency fund. We have for our citizens and our employees approximately 230 days or 8 months of reserve. We've asked our departments, we've even asked the Sheriff's Office, to please live within our means. We need to be minimizing costs at this time. We need to focus on what are essential expenses. I've asked them to lower their expectations until our economy picks up again. I've also asked, let's not make rash decisions that could jeopardize us in preparation for a potential recession. Under the county manager's collaboration, we have not cut the sheriff's budget. In fact, we've increased it every year that he's been in office. We've considered every request, we've exercised discretion in approving his needed funding, and we haven't dictated to him how that funding is to be spent. As issues have come to our attention, and he's raised several, we haven't spared any effort to ensure the proper functioning of our jail facilities, nor the feeding of our inmates or their medical care. We provided sufficient funding necessary that provides reasonable access to that medical care. I always go back to at what cost, and it's at that point where I'll respond to his memorandum. In his executive summary, Henry County is required by law to provide an adequate budget to the Henry County Sheriff to carry out his constitutional duties. We believe that these requirements have been met as he's been provided with more than adequate resources in his general fund to cover his expenses. While there is no guidance, or it's silent actually, on cost, what that should be, there is guidance that exists that states that resources be adequate and reasonable, which have been provided by us increasing his budget every year. I've included some attachments that support that conclusion. He talks to emergency needs, he and his staff. So let's address those. In fiscal year 23, the Henry County Sheriff's operating budget currently includes $2.7 million for medical services. He wants to increase that. He requested an additional $1.9 in his fiscal year 23 budget submission to cover expected increased medical costs due to a change in the medical providers. He moved from one primary care network to another, which is WellPath, based upon his increased jail population, and he was adding mental health services. We were going to use, and it is still our intent to use, $1.9 million of ARPA funding to cover that increased expense. Not in his general fund, but we're going to use ARPA funding to cover that $1.9 million. We've also approved a $90,000 purchase order recently for his mental health consultant. There is a point that I'd like to get clarified from the presentation. Are the dollar amounts that he's listed in the emergency budget request over and above the current $4.6 million that we've already approved and set aside? From our point of view, that amount that's allocated is adequate to cover any annual contracted costs that increase the $3.6 million, plus any additional COVID-19 equipment and response. Let's talk about the inmate housing solution. He brought up the SPLOS funding. In order for us to pass SPLOS, yes, that was removed, but it was the county's intent, the county manager's intent, the chair and the board at that time, that we build a jail pod. That was included in our capital improvement plan. That is still our intent. But our capital improvement plan is a working and a dynamic document. We review it and update it annually to reflect our changing needs, priorities, and funding opportunities. Similar to our courthouse construction, we're looking for a proper funding mechanism for that to occur. Will it occur today? No, we can't build a new facility in one day. Is it going to be at an increased cost? Yes, it's going to be at an increased cost. But have we found a potential funding mechanism for it? Yes, we have. When will that occur? Probably sometime in 2023, 2024, but certainly not now, not today. We're working on that. Let's talk about the detention officer and transport staffing. His current emergency funding request includes 46 new positions be added. Currently, there are 24 vacancies in the Henry County Sheriff's Office. 6 of those vacancies are in his jail. They are for detention officers. Henry County Finance requests that all currently approved and budgeted funding vacancies be filled first before he's requesting additional positions. He can reclassify these positions, which we did when he first came on board, if necessary, to align available positions to his departmental needs. Because these additional requested positions are identified as staffing for the annex and new jail structure, those items will also be considered as those facilities are closer to being operational. He had in one of the slides, transport vehicle. County manager and the capital team have recently approved the purchase of a transport vehicle already for the Henry County Sheriff's Office. This approved amount is for $130,000, slightly smaller, but $130,000 for a transport vehicle to be purchased in fiscal year 23. Let's talk about, and I'll put our focus on the food contract and kitchen repairs. Kitchen dining hall additions and renovations were completed at the main jail facility in fiscal year 22 for a total cost of $254,000. Any kitchen renovations needed at the annex would first need to be reviewed by our county manager and our capital team to determine the specific building needs, because these are our buildings, funding availability, and the priority of the project. The fiscal year 23 jail operating budget currently includes $947,000 for inmate meals. I've also included an attached file in your packet where I've compared the costs of our medical services, the cost of our food services, to other competing or comparable counties with similar jail populations. In closing, we believe that the Henry County Sheriff's Office has been provided adequate funding to currently support necessary staffing, facilities, equipment, and supplies for his office to meet his constitutional and statutory obligations. We're only 3 months into the fiscal year. He hasn't even spent 20% of his current budget. He's on track to not spend his entire budget. While ARPA funds are currently available, and we have made those available for his medical services, these funds can be used to fund operational expenses, but it has always been and consistently been my recommendation that we not use ARPA funds for that. They're intended for one-time expenses that can be addressed between now and December 31, 2024. Hopefully you have in your packet a graph. In that graph, I provided a Sheriff's Office dashboard.
They're making copies?
Yes, they're making
okay.
copies.
Okay.
Once you receive it, you'll see his actuals versus budget from the time he came on office. You'll also see the medical costs By comparative counties, he mentions his ADP, his average daily population. You'll see that comparison. You'll also see a comparison of food costs against comparative counties and what we are providing here at Henry County as costs per inmate per day compared to those counties. His actuals in fiscal year 19 and 20 were below budget. Beginning in 21, he began to outpace that budget due to several personnel decisions to create a robust command staff, to try to ensure his deputies had higher salaries to be consistent and competitive, and we tried to accommodate that. The unfavorability began in fiscal year 22. That's primarily due to his change in medical and food vendor providers. Those annual costs exceeded the allotted budget, but they became the base for his budget for 23. He's currently pacing to finish within budget. That's why I say 3 months into this current budget year to address what's been presented, I think is unnecessary. This is assuming that there are going to be no additional unbudgeted costs occurred and vacant positions are filled at the current budgeted rate. I'm prepared to take any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, David. Okay, I'd like to ask the sheriff and I guess whomever else that you want to have up. I do have some questions, and I'm going to allow the board as well to gather their questions as well. Currently, you say you have 992 that's inside. 900, that's what your daily population is right now? Not approximately 992?
Yes.
On one of the slides, it showed here that I think your population, the jail can hold 908. I believe on this slide, this historical slide, it says total beds is 908. You all have opened up the annex. How many inmates does that house?
The capacity is 84.
Capacity is 84.
That's
so
correct.
Pretty much you're at capacity or
we're over capacity.
Somewhat over.
Yes,
right.
ma'am.
What do you see as, and we can't build a pod overnight, so we know that that's not going to happen, but what are your options as to, are there an opportunity to create, have inmates housed at maybe different jail facilities, or is there some type of temporary housing that we can put, on your jail site that will house, say something that we can put over the next 30 days that could house your extra inmates?
Yes, ma'am. That's a very good question. We've looked at all of those respectively, and we have some respectable numbers with respect to that, and we'll be glad to give that to you guys immediately after this meeting.
Okay.
We've looked at every feasible solution possible. Again, some of the things that the fiscal director was talking about was prior things that went on in the Henry County Sheriff's Office. A number of things that we inherited are fundamentally different at this time frame in terms of where we're going and how we need to get there. It's extremely important for us to understand that we were woefully inadequate categorically when we came in and did our overall assessment. And so with our growth and the things that we're doing moving forward, it is incumbent upon us to make significant and adequate and reasonable changes in terms of where we need to be in what's called a large jail network. And a large jail network is any jail that houses over 1,000 inmates. We're going to be there in December. We will not return from there as December moving forward into 2023. And so if we don't make reasonable adjustments, then the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be in this situation that we're in now, but we're here. And so adjustments accordingly is just reasonably prudent. And so in addition to that, yes, ma'am, we have also, I called 6 or 7 sheriffs and asked them the same. Are you willing to house some of our inmates now? And what's interesting is that a number of them are experiencing the same exact thing that I am experiencing here in Henry County. The growth, the staffing issues, the challenges with respect to the funding, the same exact thing. In fact, the Georgia Sheriff's Association is addressing the same next week in our fall conference in Savannah because it's so significant in the state of Georgia. People are adjusting along the way. Smaller counties are realizing that it's not Mayberry anymore. It's extremely important that we adjust along the way. I don't want to be the bad guy, but these are some of the facts that we're dealing with, in particular with respect to the medical vendor, with respect to the food vendor. We came in and contracted 750 inmates. We're at 900 and some change now and going north strongly. That's going to continue to adjust. And so contractually, they're going to adjust. They're going to charge us those type of things. And with respect to $85 a day, that if any county would assist us with respect to that, that's going to be $3.1 million. These are things that we did not account for given our initial fiscal year budget. We will continue to be, like you said, we want to be under the budget and be fiscally responsible at the same time frame. We want to be responsible with respect to the ongoing changes that we're dealing with every single day. We have about 100 what we call boats. And boats are beds that are adjacent to the ground for additional staffing. That is not where we want to be at because of our overflow of population. And so with respect to the funding, as they say, it is what it is. This is one of the things we did not create or make up, but along the way, I think, again, that it's reasonably prudent that we raise levels of consciousness in terms of where we are in the county, where we're going, how we're going to get there, and a comprehensive way or plan to do that collectively. If we can do that categorically along the way, systematically and methodically as well, in terms of how do we get there without breaking the bank and with an overall strategic plan with respect to the same.
So let me ask you, to piggyback off of that, or how many of your inmates actually should be in state facilities? Do you have a number of how many of your inmates should be in state facilities that you're housing because the state hasn't come and gotten them?
Well, we have over 25% of our population, which is over 100 and some change, that we know have significant mental health problems. So much so that we need to make sure we categorize them, which the jail was not built in a way that we could separate or deal with at a very high level mental health inmates. And so they are classified in the general populations. We have to change that significantly. And so that number is 100 and something and some change, thus being one of the reasons that we brought on Dr. Brickhouse, world-renowned psychologist, to make sure that we can pinpoint and save us money from a legal perspective as to where we are with our mental health inmates, what are we doing with respect to them responsibly, and what can we do in the 21st century in terms of what other jails, large jail networks, are doing across the United States to try to deal with what we consider, quite frankly, to be a dumping ground for mental health inmates, and we do not have the capacity overall and holistically to deal with them, but while they're there, it's important that we adjust and respond accordingly.
Okay, so I get that piece on the mental health piece of it. I meant so individuals that's been sentenced by the courts to serve time in state court, are you having to house state inmates as well?
No. Yes.
No. I don't mean that. I meant are any of your inmates, should they be in a state facility?
The answer
I don't
yes.
mean medical. I'm saying people that are serving time that have been given a sentence to serve 5 years. Are you all housing those inmates?
No, we have very minimal amount. It's not a backlog for us. We have a good relation with the state, and they are accepting our inmates pretty quick.
Okay.
Our backlog is in the court system.
Okay.
Yeah, the 59% of our inmates are waiting for an actual trial. And that's where our backlog is. That's where we're holding the maximum amount of people, is on people that are actually waiting to go to trial. So you're talking about over 50% of our inmates are here on felony charges that are having to stay until they go to that. But we have very minimal. It's probably less than 10%. It's not very much.
So because of the backlogs of the courts?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Is the reason why that you are
yes, ma'am, that's
basically correct. Over capacity because I guess in working with your local police agencies, are they issuing citations for those that can be issued citations?
They can. Our police department has been outstanding, all of them categorically. But yes, you are correct. The courts, and we've been in contact with them consistently, and the judges they have put together, our understanding, a very robust plan in terms of how they're going to deal with the inmates in the calendar backlog. COVID did a number to us across the board. It significantly did a number to us. In 2020, pretty much the jail was closed down. In 2021, I reopened the jail back up because crimes were committed during the COVID time frame. And so since those times have happened, that number has consistently gone true north and will continue to do the same.
Okay. And you said with regards to your food budget that you contracted for 750 inmates. If your capacity is basically 908 and 84 at the annex, would it be better to contract at 1,000 just to make sure that you have that in your budget, I guess, moving forward?
Yes, ma'am. You're absolutely correct with respect to that. What we wanted to do at the time is to be fiscally responsible with what we had then. We had a consistent ADP of around 700 to 750 at the time, and actually 650 when we brought them in. And we thought with our growth rate, we thought with our release rate at that time frame that we could be fiscally responsible and make sure we contracted no higher than 750. Well, that has changed significantly and changing significantly as we speak.
And you asked about in here about on the COVID-19 supplies, equipment, testing, vaccinations, those types of things. What are the list of supplies that are needed? I guess I'm trying to understand what the needs when you talk about supplies.
In terms of the supplies that we need relative to...
You said COVID-19 pandemic response and mitigation. You all need supplies, equipment, testing, vaccinations. So, or do you have individuals come in to give vaccines to your inmates? Are they being tested in-house? What are the supplies and equipment that you say that you need?
Yes, ma'am. With respect to the original number of 750, anything north of that is that they're going to charge us. They're charging us, in fact. We've already received some invoices with respect to that. So they originally looked at servicing 750 inmates, and we're now at 900 and some change. Every individual inmate is a cost associated with respect to it. So that's one of the reasons why we... Yes, ma'am.
Does any of the other board have questions? We'll just go down, start down. Commissioner Holmes, did you have any questions, sir? Okay. Commissioner Wilson.
So do you have a list of expenditures of what you spent so far this year? We
can get that list for you by the end of the day if you need to. Yes, we can.
And I'm talking about the total expenditures outside the budget. When I look at expenditures, I know you have a cease fund account. Could you include all that as well?
We can include all of that for you if you need that. Yes, sir.
And the ACCG offers a medical service for the jail. Have y'all reached out to the ACCG and see if that's something that you could benefit from?
No, sir, we're familiar with that, but to align that with a medical vendor that we bring in, oftentimes there are issues with respect to policies and procedures and best practices relative to the same. And so oftentimes when we get a contracted vendor that comes in, it is a challenge to bring in another vendor or support mechanism if it's not the same policies or mechanisms with respect to thinking or acting in the same mannerism.
So have you checked with them, though, to see if the policies do line up with yours?
No, sir, we haven't, but we can do that. Okay. Anything on the table now that's a viable option, sir, we will absolutely look in that. So we would definitely take your advice on that and do that.
Okay.
Post haste.
Right. That's all I have.
Yes, sir.
So a couple of questions, and these might be best for Dr. Brickhouse. You mentioned mental health and substance abuse makes up 25% based off y'all's numbers. For folks that may not know, my father happens to be a doctor, and so is my brother. Mental health is something that the state has essentially vacated. I understand that. So the question is, in helping the mental health and the substance abuse, and mentioning new pod, is that really what's best and needed for the mental and substance abuse folks that we have incarcerated? Or was there a better option for them that we need to be looking at that is separate from our traditional jail setting?
Well, I do agree with you that a lot of them should not necessarily be in jail. But you have the issue of the legal charges, and then you also have the restrictions with respects to diversion and community placement. That is something we want to look at. Different counties have diversion courts, mental health courts, substance abuse court, and I am working with the Sheriff's Office and stakeholders here in Henry County to develop those as well. Many of those diversion services do not exist yet in Henry County, so we are looking at that. We had a meeting a month ago with the Chief of Police in Stockbridge. He's also very interested, and there's a committee that's been put in place to take a look at some of those options. But that's going to take the better part of a year. And in the meantime, the jail is faced with having to provide some basic medical mental health services, medication, some support services so that the overall management of those individuals in the jail goes well. The biggest problem is Henry County Jail now doesn't have any special housing. So we did a plot to see where the individuals were located in the jail, and they're all over the entire jail. So we are going to be looking at a classification system so that we can concentrate those individuals away from the general population. That's going to add to the overall service and make it a little bit easier in terms of efficiency because they're going to be localized in a particular area. Right now with MedPass and things like that, it takes 11 hours because of the breakup and the way that they have to go about the service delivery. So yes, I do agree with you. It would be nice if there were some alternatives. But in the meantime, since the reality is that they are at the jail, it's incumbent upon the jail staff and the county to make sure that we all stay out of trouble with respect to that.
So thank you. I think part of our job is to make sure we're forward-looking with our funding. And with that being said, if the mental health issue, we know we're not getting any assistance from the state, how do we address those as we're moving forward? So thank you, Dr. Brickhouse.
And Dr. Brickhouse, before you step away, you mentioned that you were having conversations with the Chief of Police in Stockbridge. Well, we have other cities as well that bring people to the jail. We have Locust Grove and Hampton and McDonough, as well as the county PD that also are bringing inmates to the jail. I think this needs to be a conversation, especially if you're talking mental health. This is a county-wide thing, and it's not just a one area thing. So I would hope at some point that it would encompass all of our city police departments and county police departments as in moving forward and addressing mental health in inmates.
Yes, it will.
Madam Chair, just with a point of clarity with that, you're absolutely correct. We've also started having a monthly meeting with all the chiefs to talk about what our concerns are, what our issues are, and to make sure we just raise levels of consciousness across the board to make sure that everyone is included at the table as to this is what we have, here's our concern. Can I digress just a second with respect to Commissioner England? With respect to mental health, it's also a concern of the original contract. And we also adjusted it from 4 hours a week from a clinician coming in and to seeing these high numbers of inmates that we have relative to mental health, 4 hours a week. We increased that from a fiscal responsible perspective to 8 hours a week. It is absolutely woefully inadequate for the people that we have in that need critical help, for the people that we do not have on staff, but we're trying to stay within a fiscal budget. And so to your point, we need additional hours from clinical help or clinicians that know exactly what they're doing, that could help us categorize and look and take a deeper look in terms of where our inmates are that need medical assistance around the clock. Because when they're not there, these 4 to 8 hours a week, our staff is challenged with their behavior that do not have the letters behind their name to deal with them and to categorize them in terms of the help that they need on a around-the-clock type of basis.
Thank you, Sheriff. I would just say that you repeatedly stated that we're going north. We're going north, and although I'm committed to reducing overcrowding in the Henry County Jail, I think that there are factors that are contributing to the jail's overcrowding that we have to address, and it's more than just the infrastructure. So as we as a board have to address the infrastructure's issues with this, I think that it's going to be important that we look at what policies, what operations that we can work with, as one of your teammates said, with the court system to reduce this. I'm totally committed to your platform of reducing this, but I'm also against mass incarceration. So when you say we're going north, to me that says we're going to be having more people going to jail. So I think that, although we'll never stop having to throw money at this unless we have some other infrastructure things in place. So I really want to know what your plan is besides asking the board for money to address the overcrowdedness, to reduce the people that are in the jail and that are coming to the jails as well. And you don't have to answer that today. I'm just saying that's a policy, that's a program, those are options that we have to look at, because if we're actually going north, you're going to have to come back. You're going to have to come back, and you're going to have to come back again.
I can address that very briefly. Three categories. One, my number one goal is recidivism. And we've put in place programs to make sure why they're there. With respect to the GED program, we have 40% of our people that came into the rear doors of the jail that never finished high school. So we partnered with Southern Crescent to make sure that we created that type of program. And we're having our first graduation coming up next month. And so things of that nature, teaching trades, partnering with the Urban League to make sure that they are even interviewed before they exit the jail. Those are the things that we're trying to make sure that we address specifically recidivism. However, on the left-hand side of that, we have 8,000 active warrants that have been signed by a judge. And so there's no way to get around, under, or over that. Those are things that we're going to have to address aggressively because they are warrants that are signed by judges. And so when I said we're going to be going due north, we're going to be aggressive to that. The police departments that are doing an outstanding job in this county are addressing a higher call volume because of the people that we have that have moved into Henry County, the challenges that we have in relative to crime. That's one of those things that we wish it was different, but it is not. So when I make a statement and saying that we're going true north, respectfully, that's the reason why, that we really can't get around, over, or under that. We're certainly going in that direction.
So are you saying we're going north because of there are 8,000 warrants, people, we're getting warrants, or is it we're going north because the population is growing, or are we going north because crime is increasing? I'm just trying to figure out, if we're going north and we build a pod now, we're going to have to build another pod if we're continuing to go north. So we've got to come up with what is the purpose and what is the reason for us going north. Is it that we need to get the court system to get these people out of jail? Do we need to not be putting people in jail for things that they need to just be given a ticket or a citation for not coming to jail? We can build a jail, and we have to build, but I don't think the solution to overcrowding is building more jails. That's what I'm saying. So I'm just saying, as we look at this is not something we can do today. There has to be a plan in place, not to continue to send more and more people to jail as you build more pods.
Well, I understand that, and I hear exactly what you're saying, but if we are, and we are, one of the fastest growing counties in the nation, we're going to continue to have higher call volume, which you said. We're going to continue to have a higher level of crime, which we are experiencing, and we're going to continue to have our warrant count to go north. Those are things that unfortunately we cannot get around. However, if we have subsequent and supporting mechanisms that can help the people that we are encountering, then maybe, just maybe, we can get some type of or at a higher goal, some type of balance with respect to the same. Those things that we've just implemented are new. We've completely rewritten the policy from beginning to the end to make it 21st century law enforcement effective. So we're doing those type of things, and we're working hand in hand with the court system with respect to what are we doing, how can we do better, how can we look at these calendars, what type of hit did we take with respect to COVID-19, and they are really working with us consistently and working with their own group consistently in terms of how can we aggressively attack these numbers that we're facing every single day.
And so my challenge to you would be to look at, have a study done of who's coming in there and what are they coming in there for, and how many of those people that are coming in there that probably shouldn't be in there, and maybe it could have been handled before they even got to the jail. We just got to figure out how to make sure that we're not continuing to have overcrowding. Okay, so that's just something that I would just challenge you to continue to dive into and figure out, besides recidivism, because that means they're already in jail. But how do we prevent people that are going to jail that probably shouldn't be there to help with the overcrowding as well?
So Commissioner Clemens, to piggyback on what you're saying, and I think that I heard Billy say something, where's Billy at? Say something earlier you have a lot of mental health inmates in there. And so because we don't have enough facilities in this state to how they need to be in a mental health facility and not in your jail, basically is what that boils down to. So that is contributing to a large portion of what your overcrowding is.
But Sheriff, they got 59%.
Yeah.
59% that's waiting on court.
That's right.
That's a Henry County issue.
Yeah.
That's not a mental health state issue. That's a Henry County issue. And this board, what I'm saying to the sheriff is that there needs to be a conversation. There needs to be a plan of action. Those 59%, every last one of them need to be looked at. If it takes 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months, but that 59% need to be looked at immediately and find out how many of them can be released on bail or released on a signature, whatever, and come to court. Even if it's 15% of that reduces that 59%. I'm saying, what actions are we taking to address that 59% instead of we need to build another jail? No, we need to deal with this 59% and have a plan for that. And that's what I'm saying. I challenge you as the leader of the jail, of people going to jail, of your jail that's overcrowded, to go have a conversation about that 59%.
We're doing it every week. Every week we send a report to the judges, every single week, in terms of who we have.
No plan. Is there a plan?
The plan.
Well, no, you can't make it, but have they created a plan?
From my understanding, yes, they have created a plan. And the plan.
I would like to hear the plan.
Okay, I would love to invite the judges as well, so we have an overall conversation in terms of who's on first, who's on second, who's on third, so we can play an overall game together. Not to be belittled at all, but I want to make sure that you understand that those conversations are absolutely taking place every single week to make sure we raise levels of consciousness, and they have received several emails, conversations from me as well. Now, what I think I hear you saying is to make sure that there is a strategic plan that everyone understand what the role is, how it's going to affect the county, and how it's going to move us forward in terms of what everyone is doing collectively to try to make sure we address this concern. That's what I think I hear you saying.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is that conversations and talking don't get nothing done.
That's correct.
We got to have a plan. If you're meeting every week and I still don't hear a plan, then we're meeting for nothing. And so, I mean, I know I'm not wasting my time up here. We've got to start having plans and actions in place to get this resolved. And so, yes, when we talk about spending money, we're spending citizens' money. But they elected us because we're thinkers. They elected us to do a job, and I think it's enough conversations happening. I would love to see what's the action plan. The county is going to build a pod, as David has said. We got a plan. He said by 2023, and I will hold you to that. We need to have a mechanism. We need to know, have we started design phase? Where are we with building a pod? Do we have the money? But we can do our part, but everybody else has to do their part. Right. So the infrastructure investment is us. The policies and operations is not us. And so that's where we need to get a plan. And I know you can't answer it today, as I've said, but I would love to see what the plan is to get that 59% reduced and a time frame.
So is it 59% or 50%? Billy, what is the number?
She said 59.
I just don't have it right in front of me. I don't have it right in front of me.
It's 49% on the felony, and what was the other one, Mike? And misdemeanor will make up the other.
So 49% on felonies,
yes,
and the remainder 51 a misdemeanor. Of those misdemeanor charges, are we not having court? Or are we?
The judges, and I don't want to speak for them, but I'm just going to speak with them overall. They've adjusted their calendars. They have adjusted their caseloads. They have adjusted their list. They're shifting and adjusting, and they have agreed with us. This is a problem, and we want to try to deal with it post-haste. They have agreed with that. And so these conversations are taking place next week. I hear what you're saying with respect to a specific plan, but it's also a fluid plan. This plan is changing consistently as we look at it every single day. To digress for a second, and I wish I had known that this is the very first time I've heard that a pod was going to be built or looked at in 2023. I have not heard that before.
Point of clarification. What I said was that we are looking at a funding mechanism that we should have in place by 2023, and that funding mechanism is the Public Facility Authority. Of course, I know it takes time to do design and construction, so nothing's going to be built in 2023, but I said a funding mechanism will be in place for that to address the need for housing.
And if I was wrong with that knowledge, I would be quite fine, even with respect to that. That is good news to hear, but armed with that knowledge helps us from a strategic perspective to make sure that we are, again, systematically and methodically walking forward with armed knowledge. And so that is very helpful to hear. I'm certainly grateful to hear that.
What I would like to ask is if we could meet with maybe the county, the sheriff, and the judges meet to find out if I would rather spend money bringing in a part-time judge to address these misdemeanors effectively, immediately, over the next couple of months to kind of reduce the overcrowding of the jail, because we're talking about building a jail. We're not saying anything about funding something to reduce the overcrowding. So even if it's bringing in a part-time judge, for 2 or 3 months just to look at those people that are in the jail that could possibly be released in other programs, if it's looking at the mental health, we have a mental health court. I think that we need to really spend money on reducing the overcrowdedness instead of just building another jail. So I would just like for us to take a look at, can we bring in a part-time judge? Because I know what the judges are saying. We're overloaded already. But maybe we need to bring in a part-time judge to just do that. I know we've heard of counties just saying if you in jail for a parking citation, or if you had a civil something, or all these things, they'll have a time period, Sheriff, that they look at those things and try to reduce it. So those are just some other things I think we need to have a conversation about.
But y'all currently do that right now. If they've served a number of their time, y'all currently look at inmates that, I guess, like with early release, if they've done everything, I guess, what they're supposed to. But, right. But the one thing is that we ought to consider some night court, and, we might have to bring in 2 or 3 judges, more than just one, Commissioner Clemens.
Yeah.
I think that we need to bring in what needs to be brought in to help clear up, your inmate population, because you're right, the judges have so many hours in the day. And if they're on the bench for 8 hours, we may have to bring in some additional judges. We may have to look at night court. We may have to look at whatever options are available for us to be able to assist you in helping you to decrease your population until we can do what's necessary to get an additional part built.
And David, I heard you say his and he's a lot. Was that referring to the sheriff?
Sheriff's office.
Okay, well then I'd rather you say the sheriff's office, because I didn't want it to look like it was, this is just sheriff's scandal. So we need to be, well, he understood it. He was saying a lot about the he's and the his, but we're talking about the sheriff's office.
The sheriff's office.
Thank you. I just want to correct that. And then the last thing, Chair Harrell, is when we're doing comparisons, and David, you gave us a comparison of the dashboard. One of the things that I would ask that we do when we compare our county to other counties is that we include the population of those counties, we include the budgets of those counties, and the demographics of those counties. Because a lot of times when we compare ourselves to Fulton County, or we compare ourselves to DeKalb, their budget is not our budget, and their population is definitely not our population. We have 200 and upwards of maybe 250, between 240 and 250,000. Those counties' population and their budgets are way more than ours, and their population is double, triple our county. So we need to be very careful when we're doing those demographics or those comparisons, and I'm not sure what they're coming from. Are they coming from, budgets, population, or the demographics? So
all 3 of those areas.
All 3 of them.
Okay, but just include them on here.
They are on here.
No, not the budgets. That's what I was saying.
Budgets,
Yeah,
okay.
David, you know why I'm asking that, because I don't want
Yes,
to.
ma'am.
Yeah.
The purpose behind that comparison was to show that we are currently providing greater than anyone else in terms of food costs and medical care for our inmates. The sheriff's office has done a tremendous job in bringing things on board, collaborating with the county manager to increase his budget to do such.
This is excellent, but when we're paying $450 and our budget is 3 times less than another county, we need to show that. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so that we can say we're going above and beyond, because
We
that's
are
what
going above and beyond.
Right, that's what that would mean. If Forsyth is doing $1.31, but their budget is $600 million,
Yes,
and we're doing $4.50, and our budget is $200 million, I'm just saying it will be helpful to kind of be able to explain why you, because you knew it in your head, but put it down. Thank you, David.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Thomas. Last but not least.
Well, Sheriff, I will not continue to beat this horse. And I feel like I was, they stole my notes that I had on my paper, Chair Harrell and Commissioner Clemens. So I kept smiling and circling things. A couple of things. One of the things I definitely want to highlight is that 59% that Commissioner Clemens was talking about. We need to find a way to reduce that population. And when Chair Harrell said night court, I thought, now what else you gonna say on my paper? But I do think this conversation needs to go beyond you. You are doing what you can with a facility, which is a finite place. But we do need to see what we can do to help our judges. And if that means we need to look at our budgets for our judges to bring on those extra judges to clean out that area for you, I want us to consider that. As Commissioner Clemens has just stated as well, we can't continue to build, and throw money at this. We need to find a way to try and help stop this bleeding process that's taking place at your doorsteps. And I see you trying to do it on your own, and we have to jump in and say, no, there's another process need to be taking place here. And of course, we do have another police department that came on strong with 61 officers, I believe. Okay, they came on strong with 61 officers, not 62. That's adding to the number of people you're having to serve at that facility. I do have a couple of questions though. David, on the document that you gave to us here when it starts talking about the transport vehicle, has that been approved, or are you saying that's something that can be approved? I'm not sure. Has that been approved in their budget or not?
The Capital Plan Committee has approved that. Before we make any purchases above $50,000, it's supposed to come back before the board. That's for Henry County, but the Sheriff's Office does his own purchasing, so that amount has been approved for him to purchase a transport vehicle.
So this amount is in a budget somewhere waiting for the BOC to approve and get to the sheriff. Is that what you're saying to me?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
The sheriff can go and purchase his vehicle with $130,000 for transport.
So
he
it is
doesn't have to come
approved.
back before the board once that's approved.
Okay,
I'm saying in the capital request that he made.
Okay.
He requested a transport vehicle. We approved for him to be able to purchase a transport vehicle. So that capital request that he made does not have to come back before the board.
Because that has been approved in
his capital budget.
In his capital budget. Okay, I'm just trying to see if that's additional money that we're having to approve. But you're saying no, it has now already taken place. Additionally, you have.
We're not familiar with that either.
Okay.
I mentioned this to the sheriff's office and staff when we were in the capital planning room when we had a meeting together. The same as I mentioned this to them when we were talking about the 1.9 for their medical contract.
All right, so.
And how that funding was going to be coming from ARPA.
Okay, so that money is available. That's the only term I know to use at this point in time.
That is
for
correct.
him to use. Additionally, this $454,000 plus for food vendor, that money also is available as well. That's not additional money that's needed, correct?
That was a point of clarification that I was asking for the sheriff, and that's why I said he needs to spend his current budget first. If he needs to make capital improvements, he needs to work with the sheriff's office, needs to work with our facilities group to come up with a cost to move that forward. Right. But he currently has within his budget to do those things.
He currently has that money available. We don't have to look at that. And the reason I'm asking that question particularly, because I remember, Sheriff Scandrett, when you did your initial assessment of the jail itself and all the
Repairs.
Okay, good term, repairs that were needed for that jail, that kitchen was one of the ones. Did we do those improvements then? Are those improvements still in need? I remember seeing the pictures and everything that you were dealing with.
Can Hutch come up and answer these? I'd like for Hutch to come forward So, right. So basically, Commissioner Thomas, yes, the kitchen over here at this facility was renovation. What he's asking for renovations for is the annex, where they had to open up the annex to where they're currently right now housing inmates over at the annex. And I think there's some work that needs to be done to that. Now, I'm not sure where you all got the figure of 454, if it only took us, how much, it was 250 to do the kitchen over there. Hutch, have you had a chance to look at the facility at the annex and give us a cost estimate of what it would cost to do repairs for the kitchen there?
No, ma'am, I hadn't had it.
Okay, so can you talk about the repairs and the maintenance or whatever you've done so far?
Over at the annex build specifically,
No,
we replaced the
at
roof. And at the main jail, yes.
Yeah, well, both facilities.
Right, correct. Okay. We've done 3 roof replacements at the main jail. Pods A and B, the training facility has a new roof, and parts of the old admin. We've upgraded, yeah. So at the, specifically at the jail, it was $387,000. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Pod A was $240,000. Pod B was $327,000. And then for the surveillance and access control equipment for Pod A and B, $475,000. We've also upgraded the chillers. Both chillers have been replaced, and we've upgraded multiple rooftop units. We're currently working with contractors now for pricing on 5 of the large multi-zone air handlers. So we're hoping to get some costs back on that within a week or so, but they're going to be special build units that are going to require a lot of logistical work as far as getting in and out of the jail to get those changed out.
Now, those upgrades that you're referring to, be it kitchen or the roof or outside area, inside area, or the air control system, are those dollars within his budget, or those dollars that we're absorbing as a board directly? Will it affect his budget directly? I'm trying to make sure we're not using the sheriff's money when we should be paying for certain things. That's why I'm being so specific here.
For our facilities, we use our facilities budget.
Okay, so these upgrades that we're referring to, that he just outlined, and I don't know what the total is, came from facility and maintenance budget or something of that nature.
That is correct.
Okay, did not affect the sheriff's budget. Okay.
And that's why I was recommending that the sheriff utilize his current budget to do those things that are necessary and to work with our facilities group to come up with a cost estimate for what his needs are.
Okay.
Whatever those requests have been, we've worked with the sheriff's office to try to make certain that they happen.
Well, thank you. And I wanted to make sure we were not absorbing, and he was not absorbing other costs that should not be absorbed by the sheriff department, and that we as a board was absorbing the cost to our facility departments to support his efforts. Also on G, David, you have down here that for COVID response, the $471,000 plus, that's money has been used or money that is available for him to use now?
That's money that he's requesting in addition to his current budget.
So this is a request here that's not, okay. Well, let's see.
Respectfully also, Commissioner Thomas, with respect to the jail annex, has its own kitchen that has not been used in years. It is not up to par. It does not have a stove that is adequate. Anything that we can do to make sure that we stay above standards. So we're tested and we're checked and we're looked at by the county and the state in terms of what we're doing. That kitchen has not been used. And I cannot sacrifice utilizing the kitchen from the main jail, transporting the meals, because the temperatures will go down. And that's when the county, and more specifically the sheriff's office, will be cited with respect to that. So that kitchen has significant repairs. In fact, the structure itself needs some significant repairs, even though we're in it now. We're occupying right now. Okay. But there are some things we're going to have to address with that post haste. And the kitchen being the kitchen being one.
That be reviewed, the county manager and the facilities team to determine what that need is and funding
So
availability.
what I was trying to determine with those dollars, that this was something that facility maintenance can work with you to do and not have to touch your budget. That's what I'm saying.
We would
That
love
this
to
should
work
be
with anyone,
facility
Commissioner, in terms
maintenance,
of making sure
because
this
these
gets
are
done.
our buildings, and they should go over and give you that estimate, just as they've done with these other repairs, correct? And get that done on behalf of the sheriff department without touching your budget. That's what I was trying to clarify, where these dollars are going to travel from and who will be maintaining these budgets and these dollars for what should take place. So I am okay with your having to do the kitchen at the annex, no problem with that, but I want to determine where and how it was going to be done. So I got it now. Hutch, you got a kitchen you may have to do over there. That's what it sounds like to me.
About monies, and whether it's in the sheriff's office or DOT, it is general fund dollars. So regardless of where it's coming from, it will be an impact on our budget. As you all know, we approved the budget on we approved the budget prior to July 1st. We are less than 3 months into this budget, and these requests are coming up. And one of the things that I say to each department, if you know that you're going to have needs, we need to go ahead and incorporate that within the budget. If we knew in March or April or May that the numbers were continuing to increase, this should have been a part of that budget request. So I don't want you to say, because it's not coming out of the sheriff's office budget, it will be an impact to our general fund budget, because these are not funds that we have budgeted currently. So if the board elects to authorize this improvement, then we will amend our budget by whatever that dollar amount is for the kitchen, repair.
What I was alluding to, Sherry, I understand that, but when it's under Hutch, these are estimates and dollars and contractors, whatever you need, that's managed by you and your department. When we turn those dollars over to the sheriff, being a constitutional officer, it's under his management. So that's why I wanted to make sure, if indeed we decide to do something, where is it going to come from, and where would the management structure be? Where would the estimates be? And that was very important. I do understand the impact is to the county, but how that's managed is a whole different ball of wax, okay? Because we have to respect the fact that the sheriff is a constitutional officer, and when we give him that budget, he then is responsible for how it's managed. But if indeed we say that we want these repairs done and approve them and do it through our facility maintenance director or person, we then have more accountability and control as to how those dollars are spent and how we can save money and be more accountable for our citizens' money. That's what I was alluding to. And that's why I want to ask David these questions as to where the fundings were traveling from and who would have the ultimate responsibility of management. But thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Okay, David, let me see if I can get back here. Okay, so that amount, the 471 plus, is being requested, and that's being requested because of the annex that we're getting prepared to try and use, correct? Okay. Okay.
So lately, we are transporting meals from the main jail to the annex each day.
I have a couple more questions here, and I'll be finished with you, I think. One of the things that you mentioned, David, if you just give us a little more clarification, you used the term that we were on track for
recession.
No. But we were on track he was on track for using the budget as aligned, it has given to the sheriff department, and that at this point in time, we were on track. He should not need, I'm assuming, certain dollars. Could you go back when you were talking about the sheriff department is on track for the budget that has been aligned to that department? And I think you were mentioning the fact that he has 24 vacancies now, correct? He was requesting 46, and that you're requesting that he fills the 24 prior to approving the 46. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct.
Okay. And by doing so, that keeps our budget within track of what has been allotted by this board, I'm assuming, if that what you were referring to. And the next thing you said in D is that the detention officers, we were talking about, Sheriff, that if you have to transport these officers to another facility, you also have to transport staff with them. Is that correct?
That's correct. Currently, and we just changed the policy and procedures with respect to this, and I don't want to give out too many security measures, but you do not transport an individual transport unit. We've been utilizing vans. You need to have an escort and a front escort and a rear escort to adequately transport these type of inmates. You need to make sure that we have officers to the rear of the inmates inside of that facility. The type of, inside of that type of vehicle, we don't have that. We have an old school type of way of doing things. We got to make sure we change that to a newer way approach for the safety and security of our officers and inmates while in transport, going from one facility to the next.
Okay. And when those inmates are transported to another facility, the personnel that's needed to be with 6 or 7, 8 inmates that you, excuse me, transport over, does that facility personnel now take over? Do we have to also be prepared to leave officers with whoever we transfer? How does that work, sir?
With respect to us taking inmates to another facility, I remember some years ago that other sheriffs did request, if we're going to house your people, give us the people to take care of them because we're short also. And so oftentimes what sheriffs would do is to send an additional team to these additional facilities and have them to do roll calls there, and they will dwell within their facility while being Henry County and supporting the other facility without it being a strain on their agency with respect to trying to take care of our inmates directly or indirectly.
Okay, I'm just trying to see again the need for these additional officers that you're requesting. But
it's
if
important
you
also to note right
what
there.
you have from house to send somewhere else, of course I can see that you need that additional support there.
It's important also to note that the current detention officers that we have slotted for was for the 750 inmates that we have. We had 900 and some change now. And so it's going to, even though we have 24 positions still to fill, we do a pretty good job of reading tomorrow's paper today. So we want to make sure that we are hiring, or we have the ability to hire more people, because right now we are 242 people over that 750 inmates. And it's important that we have the right personnel to give oversight to those people as well.
I do agree with you on that, absolutely.
It needs to fill the vacancies. The sheriff's office needs to fill its vacancies. They can reclassify positions as needed to meet the growing need.
Okay. And one thing you talked about, your medical services, and I'm looking at $2 million plus that you're now spending in medical services, or has been allotted for you to spend in comprehensive medical services. Are any of those services, is there any way that those services can be done almost similar to, I hate to say like an outpatient, or having someone else come in to supplement as needed instead of just totally having someone on staff?
No, and contractually, again, we're talking about policies and procedures in terms of what they're doing from a medical component inside of the jail. So from a legal perspective, if someone else comes in and services an individual inmate, they leave. And then there's an issue that arises that the current vendor has to deal with. There's a conflict of interest with respect to that.
Okay.
In terms of what has been done, what additional file has been created by a separate entity. So you certainly don't want to mix those two. We want to stay focused, locked in on the main vendor that we have.
Okay. And last but not least, what type of penalties that we could possibly suffer as a county if we don't find a way to accommodate the needs of the jail? I know there are penalties that can be issued by the state and different judgments. We often hear about facilities being fined. Tell me what the outcome could possibly be if we find ourselves in that position.
We want to stay away from being federally mandated to do what we deem to be needed right now. And particularly when we have supportive mechanisms to make sure that we are not going to go south at this number anytime soon. And so if we don't accommodate those type of inmates, those type of needs from a constitutional perspective, we can be federally mandated to do the same. We want to stay away from that. We would rather do that on our own and recognize that there's a concern, and then put up specific measures in place along the way to make sure we can attack those aggressively.
And thank you for being so informative. A lot of questions I've tried to ask because we have an audience and they want to know what it is that they're supporting with their tax dollars. So thank you for the presentation and the additional information. And thank you, David, for breaking this down so we have something comparative to look at while we try and make a good decision on behalf of our constituents. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Did you have a question?
I have one last question. Chair Harrell, Commissioner Clemens asked some good questions, and mine's around the state and Superior pending. What were those pre-COVID pending numbers? I know they're elevated now, but what were they prior to COVID?
Prior to COVID, they was almost the same, to be quite frankly, to be honest with you. Those numbers really haven't changed at all. That is really what sparked strong conversations between the Sheriff's Office and the judges in terms of what are we doing? Do you recognize the issues? What are you doing to try to change that? How can we help you suffer less with respect to that and get on the same page of music? So the numbers really hadn't changed significantly pre and post.
Okay, thank you.
Sheriff, do you have a copy of your document that you submitted to us?
No.
And I apologize, David, I said your name on that document should have been Sheriff Stanford.
Okay,
I do apologize
all right.
for that.
So we're going to wrap this up. I'm not going to ask no more questions, but I just want to, let's go down this list real quick, Sheriff and David. Number 8, comprehensive medical contract. The funds are already allocated in the sheriff's budget to cover to 2.7. Am I correct, David?
That is correct.
Okay, so Sheriff, I want you to get your pen. Okay, that's already in your budget. That's the contract that you're going to have with your medical provider, I guess. Mental health services. So is this an estimate in addition to the 2.7 for mental health services? Was this in the budget or this addition? This is an addition.
Yes.
We're going to use ARPA funding.
You're going to use ARPA funding to cover
the medical contract and the mental health services.
Okay,
But he
so
already
that
has
was
a
all,
comprehensive
okay, so
medical
all that's
in
in the budget.
in his budget.
Arbor funding?
Yeah, the 1.9 of ARPA funds that we
1.9.
had allocated earlier.
That was allocated.
It's already there. Okay? Inmate housing, we know we're gonna have to deal with that. And some of the things that we talked about was bringing on additional judges, maybe looking at night court, just trying to see what we can do to get some of your population out. In addition to the facilities authority that we're looking at trying to establish to cover courts and jails, okay? Detention officers, we want you to fill those 24 positions that you have. Once those are filled, then we'll come back and look at how we can reclassify some other positions in order to meet your needs of the 42 additional detention officers that you're looking for, okay? Transport vehicle is funded. 130,000, you said, David? Is that correct?
Yes, I'm hoping he can find something for 130,000.
Okay, so if we can't, then what?
He still needs a transport vehicle that's been approved.
Okay, so it's been approved, okay. Food vendor contract, because of the oh no, this is not food vendor, this is the kitchen repairs. We're going to have Hutch go over and take a look at the facility and come back and let us know what that cost is going to be. A determination is going to have to be made whether or not it's going to come out of facilities budget or whether it will come out the sheriff's budget, and we deal with what we have to deal with at that particular time. Okay? The COVID-19, I'm sorry, that's the kitchen repairs. And number G is the COVID-19 response and mitigation equipment and supplies.
He has sufficient funds in his current budget to cover whatever expenses related.
So if not, let's get with David, have your staff, Sheriff, to get with David to see where he's talking about within the budget that falls. Okay? Now, have we addressed all the concerns that you have, Sheriff, with regards to the document that you provided to us that I just went over each one. Do you have any other concerns that we need to address?
Yes, the capacity concerns with respect to us, my continued conversations with the sheriffs that are outside, to the extent that we can get someone to partner with us with respect to that, because they're dealing with the same things.
Okay.
And I'm going to bring that up in the Georgia Sheriff's Association conference as well, in terms of, and the challenge is that they're going through some of the same things, I mean, across the state of Georgia. So to the extent that we can do that, that's about $85 a day, $3.1 million a year. So that conversation needs to be had.
Okay, so then can you get back with us? Let's set up a meeting with myself and Sherry, David, and whoever else from, I want you there with me. I'm going to be there in the meeting, and we're going to sit down and look at what comes back once you make your contacts with the various other sheriffs to see if they will house some of your inmates, and let us look at what that cost will be, and then we will bring it back to the board to look at approving that additional cost.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all for your time.
All right. Thank you, Sheriff.
All right.
Okay. Moving on. Next, we have appointments. District 1 appointment to Council on Aging. Vera Gordon Burns. Is Ms. Burns here? Like to get a motion to approve the appointment to fill an unexpired term of 12/31/2022. Can I get a motion? Can I get a second? Okay. If there's no discussion, all in favor? Motion carries. Congratulations, Ms. Burns. Thank you. Appointment to the Region 6 Advisory Council for Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disability, Chief Superior Court Judge O'Mara. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Can I get a second? Second. Got a second. If there's no discussion, all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Our consent agenda, if we can get our county manager, Sherry Matthews, to come forward and read the consent agenda.
Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the board. This is your consent agenda for Tuesday, October 4th, 9 a.m. We have a resolution from the airport. It is a resolution requesting financial assistance from the state of Georgia for the Atlanta Speedway Airport in the amount of $10 million in support of land acquisition and hangar development. Under fire rescue, we have a resolution for the emergency purchase of 6 2023 Dodge 4500 ambulance prep chassis from Countryside Dodge in the amount of $399,642. Funding will be from ARPA funds. We also have a resolution of the Board of Commissioners approving the purchase of heavy apparatus lifts from Mohawk Lifts in the amount of $55,213.83. Under the Police Department, we have a resolution to adopt an ordinance governing live scan fingerprints for applicants, employees, or volunteers seeking employment with Henry County, and to repeal conflicting ordinances to provide for an effective date and for other purposes. Under Planning and Zoning, we have a resolution approving a request for the addition of one light to an existing streetlight district from Mathis Place at Pembroke Park on Willow Lane, located in District 3. We also have a resolution approving a request for the addition of 2 lights to an existing streetlight district for Stanford Park on Airline Road, also in District 3. Under Stormwater, we have a resolution of the Henry County Board of Commissioners accepting a grant from the Department of Natural Resources Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Program in the amount of $1,498,459. Stormwater Fund to pay cash match in the amount of $607,220, and an in-kind match of $45,000 has been donated by other partners. The breakdown is included in the resolution for Butler Bridge Park and stream restoration. Under Technology Services, we have a resolution awarding TIPS state contract to Civic Plus for website design in the amount of $167,087.65 with an annual recurring service fee of $43,903. We also have a resolution approving Sourcewell contract for Milner laser printers in the amount of $15,281 per month over a 48-month period for managed print services. And then finally, under Transit, we have a resolution approving the Department of Human Services contract fiscal year 2023 for transportation services provided to elderly and disabled individuals in the amount of $473,454.40. This ends the consent agenda.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay.
Under technology services, could you please give us some clarification where you have a website design? What website design is costing us?
So this is actually the website for the county, and I do have our technology services here prepared to update the board on that.
Thank you.
It's going to be Jesse Dobbs.
It should be in your book.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, would you like to?
No, it said, no, they were asking about I said it should be in the book.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. So this is to redesign our county website to bring it up to standards with the technology of today. We'll have, I can give you some additional information. So Civic Plus is a organization that has over 20 years of experience in local government. They are currently providing services for over 12,000 entities across the United States. In those, there are 180 administrative users that are currently using their website, and they're serving over 340 million residents inside of the United States. They currently already have a footprint with Henry County. Our tax commissioner's current website uses, it's not in there. Our tax commissioner's website currently uses Civic Plus. They had that redesigned a couple years ago. Parks and Rec uses their Civic Rec program, which is done for their scheduling for their events, and the county clerk uses Civic Clerk, which Civic Plus designed as well. So features that will be provided to the county. For starters, the departments will be able to, if they choose, to update their information on their content themselves, and that will go through a workflow process at that point, which will be have to be approved by the communications department before going live to the public. The website will be ADA compliant, meaning that the color scheme will be designed to benefit those that are colorblind so they can see the site. And it'll also have audio available for those that that are visually impaired. We're also issued a redesign every 4 years. So as technology changes, and it changes quickly, Civic Plus will provide us with a redesign to make sure that our website's up to date and current. Another feature that we provide us is the website is available in 27 different languages. This is something that we currently do not have on our website today. English, Spanish, and Chinese are the three most common languages spoken inside of Henry County by our residents, and these are included in the redesign. We also have chatbot capabilities and we've all seen that, where you've got a little button at the bottom, you click a button, and you're provided with a little chat box where you can ask your questions. The chatbot scans the website and then provides the information to the residents if needed, and if for some reason it can't provide an answer, it will direct us with a department or a contact who they can contact directly. This will help us to cut down on the residents calling in to the 6,000 line, and it'll also help us to keep from having them redirected or transferred over and over again, which we all hate. So in closing, I'd like to say that the Technology Services Department is looking to collaborate with our Communications Department to bring this new website to Henry County. With the infrastructure updates going on and the new buildings that are being built, the state-of-the-art buildings, a new standard is being set inside of Henry County. We want to bring that standard to our residents through this website. We want to bring it to the state of Georgia and to the rest of the United States. When someone Googles Henry County, Georgia, we want them to know where we stand inside the community. And I'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you for your presentation, but I'll be frank with you, I didn't hear nothing that costs us $167,000. When you talk about a chat, 27 languages, come on, I mean, I don't hear anything that costs $167,000. Being able to update our own information, I can do that on the website. Being able to set languages, and I'm not even technology oriented with a certificate. I don't hear anything. Now, my question is, will this website be some way integrated with this Tyler system that we're already paying for or not? Is that totally different?
It's not integrated with the Tyler system, but this is a complete overhaul that's been due with our website. Right now, I know we brought to this board several years back an update to our website. The board had some concerns about awarding that contract because of the amount. It has substantially gone down. We are familiar with this platform. Most of you all that are utilizing your computers for the board meetings, that is what this company offers. And so it will actually be able to offer some additional features. One of the other things, and I know Jesse went through it, is the mobile data capabilities. Right now it is a struggle getting on our county website from your mobile phone. Sometimes you get the error messages, so this will be a complete overhaul. And I know you said $167,000 is a lot. I'll be honest with you, Commissioner. It is a fairly low cost compared to a lot of the websites, or at least a lot of the companies that we've interacted with in terms of trying to get a cost. We've got to do something with our website. We've got to enhance it. We've got to make it more user-friendly, less wordy. And one of the things Jesse mentioned in terms of the departments, while that's no cost associated with it, right now if a department has a request, or if a commissioner has a request in terms of, hey, I want to get something on the website to update that I have an upcoming event, it goes to our communications team on top of all of the other requests that are coming in, and they have to work that in. The department directors will now have the ability to upload that information. Again, it has to be approved by communications, but that information will be readily available and you're not having to wait to have it updated. So if you want us to break down or at least provide to you all what this $167,000 covers, I'm sure that we can provide that. But I will say that I do believe that it is certainly worth the value of what the end result's going to be.
Chair, I do know that we need an overhaul because I'm one of the ones that's been complaining about it. And I know that we definitely need to make sure we have an up-to-date website. My concern is, how does it interact with other things that we have? We have some type of system now. If our constituents want to know about a repair, they can click into it. I want to know, will this be talking to that website? We have something now that if someone wants to know about a program or a project that has started, they can go into our website some way, somehow, and figure out where it's at, or what stage it's at. I want to know if those things are integrated. I don't want us to have this little pod over here for the clicking and ticket, this little pod over here to follow on the program, this little pod over here to do something else. If we're going to do this, I'm listening for that. I'm not listening for the things that we can do ourselves. Updating the website, yes, we can do. Making it 27 languages, I guarantee I can get somebody to do it for $1,500. There are just things that I'm listening for that you're not saying. And if these things are integrated like that, I want to hear that. So we won't have these isolated parts of technology where this one doesn't communicate with that one. This one doesn't communicate with transportation. But this one you got to go to for that one. And this one, that's what I'm listening for, and I'm not hearing that. So if that's what you're doing, express that so I can see the interaction before the whole county for the investment. I'm not upset about the dollars per se. I'm upset about what you're saying we're getting for the dollars. So give me that type of information.
And I'll let staff confirm, but I'm almost sure that SeeClick Fix is a part of this exact platform. This company has merged with them, and so that application will now be able to be utilized with this platform. I assure you, anytime we're bringing something, it's to eliminate something else so it can be a one-stop shop, and that's what we're trying to do. So that's why Jesse mentioned the Parks and Rec piece, because now residents who are going to register their children for Parks and Rec, when that website's completed, they may be able to go in and say, hey, look, I need to enter a pothole request. Everything will be one-stop shop. You can have it at your fingertips. You click the app, and it gives you every platform that you're looking for.
Okay, well, that's much better, because that's not what was said. I'm looking at a chat box. I wrote it down. 27 languages, I wrote it down. I said, what in the world? You know, give us information for the investment, and that's not what I heard. And that's what I like to hear from technology, to say that. Because we're paying a lot of different platforms.
And
we have to make reservations on another platform.
Jesse's a tech guy, and so Jesse's going to tell you the technology piece. I think that's why Melissa came up to speak to the communications. But if you have more specific questions in your package, it outlines everything that's going to be included, and every line item tells what those expenses are for and what the intent of awarding this contract will include.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sherry, the only thing is that it's not updated. My concern was that the first year they get $167,000, and then I was looking at what do we get the first year and how long was it going to take for the overhaul. I know it's going to be the $43,000 is just maintenance, annual maintenance, but the overhaul of the website, it says June 2022. So that's not updated. So it has nothing to do with where we are. But I would really like to see an update on when we can expect this $167,000 piece to go into effect, because it didn't change.
It's a 15-month. We have a 15-month timeline from the time the implementation starts, and that's the timeline to get this completely done.
So they get $167,000 up front, and we don't get a website for 15 months?
No. They don't get it up front, no. We pay it in stages. As we meet certain requirements throughout the process, we pay them a certain amount, and they have to meet those standards before we pay them.
So it says total investment for year one is $167,000.
So that is what we will pay after so it's 15 months to get the website updated, all the changes made to it. They will invoice us as they complete specific tasks. So we will have a purchase order for the entire amount, but we don't send over a check and say, okay, here you go, and move from there. We will pay them as those invoices come in.
Okay. I know it's needed. I just want to make sure we get this website up, and they don't wait 15 months to get it up. And okay.
I think Jamie wanted to add something additionally, Commissioner.
Come on, Jamie.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Board. One of the things I did want to mention is this also is going to help us security-wise. This will take us off of on-prem. Right now, the website's housed here. We hold this website. They'll be housing the website, and it'll still have to go through several security functions in order for them to get to it, but it would be much safer for us as a county.
The only thing that I would ask, Chair Harrell, please let me ask them this, is that they add the airport website on this. Melissa, you built an airport. There's some ancillary websites that the county has out there that need to be included in this. Our Parks and Rec, all of that needs to be up there. The registrations for all of our parks. Like, I don't know who is working with them on that, but we don't need to come back and say, well, that wasn't on there. So I know when people register for to utilize the parks and stuff like that, that's not on our internet or website anywhere.
Mm-hmm. So yes, you're right, and this will engage everyone, collaborate with all of these, and not redirect. It will be part of one website, so we can, all these outside websites that we have that we've created for special needs can come onto this one website. So that will happen. This company will work with each department to pare down their information, get the most important information. People are having a hard time finding things on our website. There's too many layers. There's old information. There's archived. This company has done this for many other governments, and they will do that for us. They'll work with us, our department heads, our leadership, and we will be able to put everything under one house.
I would like for you guys to bring us back, making sure, like, even with, if somebody needs to go pay a citation online, talking about the court system now, all of that stuff needs to be included on this website. And I don't know, if you guys have looked at all of that, but just make sure there's nothing left out. on it. And if you could give us an update on, this is what it's going to be. At some point, with 167,000, I really would like to see as they get further along in it, to say, look at, what's happening with that.
We can do that, Commissioner. Thank you.
So, I'm going to ask that, Commissioner. The price tag of our current website was done in-house by our webmaster, who also did the webmaster job in graphics. It was decided to do that under a different board coming out of a recession. There was no funding for any kind of a website, and the website previous to it had kind of been taken by an outside entity and a little bit perverted, made it something else. So Meredith Butler created the new website, and she did a wonderful job with it, but it's not responsive the way it needs to be now with the new technology. So the cost would be, her salary, part of her salary over, I think, a 3-year period. And I can't give you anything more specific than that. But we are at a point in Henry County, we want the best of everything. We want to offer the best of everything. We want to be responsive to our citizens. We want them to be able to find things easily, not be frustrated. And hopefully this will accommodate that, because right now I think there is some frustration in finding things layer after layer. So I think this is where we need to be, and I hope you agree.
Well, you all are to be commended, because this has been 6 years, and it looks like we're in the 80s. And I'm not being negative about it, but I mean, it's time to bring us to 2022. So thank you for this. I'm looking forward to seeing a new friendly website, technology-friendly website.
Absolutely. Yes,
Something you can find stuff, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all in favor? Those that are opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we move to our regular agenda, planning and zoning, an ordinance by the Henry County to amend the county code section regarding short-term rental properties in Henry County. This is a public hearing, so if I could have Kenta?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and Commissioners. The item before you is for an ordinance regarding the regulation of short-term rentals in Henry County. At this time, the Henry County Code of Ordinances does not regulate short-term rentals. It is essentially a free-for-all. The ordinance is intended to establish regulations so that the county can manage these short-term rentals. Planning staff has had conversations with a number of entities at the county and state levels. We have spoken to some concerned citizens in an August 11th meeting. On August 16th, we held a public hearing to take in comments from both the public and the board. We have incorporated some of those comments and concerns into this revision and bring it today before you for a vote. The proposed amendment would be included in Chapter 3-3 Licenses and Taxation under the Henry County Code of Ordinances. I just want to quickly hit the high points. In this ordinance, we will establish definitions for short-term rentals, application requirements, standards and restrictions, and establishment of penalties and violations. This is the definition of a short-term rental. We, of course, in our definition section have other definitions, but I just wanted to highlight this one. For the application materials, we are looking to take short-term rental applications to the business license process. Since September 28th, when the initial reports for this meeting were published, staff has made one slight change. Applications for short-term rentals may be made up to 3 dwelling units. The number of bedrooms and square footage of each is going to be required in part of the application material. That will be cross-referenced with the certificate of occupancy issued by the building department to make sure there are no quote-unquote phantom rooms, or just to make sure everything has been permitted. We will also need a signed affidavit from a licensed building inspector, which attests that the property meets all building and life safety codes. Informational brochure, as well as for short-term rental properties located within a subdivision with an active HOA, that HOA shall provide written approval. Some standards for the short-term rentals. Rentals shall be no more than 30 days. Proof of mail notice to all properties within 300 feet of the short-term rental property is required. Owner shall keep a detailed report of use of the short-term rental made available to the county upon request, as well as the short-term rental shall comply with the nuisance and noise control ordinance. Restrictions for short-term rentals. Property shall not be advertised as a short-term rental without approved occupational tax certification. We will have language addressing the parking at short-term rentals. Shall not be used for the purpose of a party, and we do actually define a party as per this ordinance. These short-term rentals shall also not be used as a pickup or drop-off location for a commercial transportation service. For violations and penalties, this ordinance does establish penalties and violations. Upon a third violation, the county shall revoke any pending license and reject all applications for that property for a period of 24 months. Violations are also punishable by a fine not to exceed $1,000 or imprisonment of not more than 60 days or both. Planning staff does recommend approval of this ordinance and recommended changes, and I would be happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Kenta. I do have a couple of questions that I guess I'm trying to make sure I understand. So, in looking at this ordinance, I see that it addresses short-term rentals. Is there a section in here, and maybe I have overlooked it, that addresses party houses? Because what's to stop someone, whether it's a short-term rental or a long-term rental, from utilizing that space as a party house? I think that that is the biggest complaint that we've received from several communities, that where a home is sold or whatever, and some investor buys the home and they put it on a platform somewhere, and people rent it out, and they are having parties every weekend in communities and neighborhoods. So is there anything in the ordinance that addresses party houses specifically?
Yes, that's an excellent question. So we do define a party in this ordinance, and we do strictly prohibit parties within short-term rentals.
So is it, can you tell me where I need to, okay, said party means it has a definition of party, but this is short-term rentals. What if someone, whether short-term or long-term, what's stopping someone? I guess short-term versus long-term. What's stopping someone that leases a house for a year to someone? Mm-hmm. What stops that person from having a party?
That would essentially be the nuisance ordinance, or maybe the noise control ordinance. We are, from some of the conversations that we've had throughout this process, it seems like some of the board members and I think some departments within the county would like to update the noise control and the nuisance ordinance. This obviously does not address those updates, but this is one step into preventing and regulating these party houses.
Okay, so, okay, Commissioner Clemens.
I think that if someone, even if it's a personal home, if you have an event, family reunion, party at your house, and it's not a nuisance, I don't see where there's an issue. I saw a couple of things in this ordinance that I like. One, that it's cars are limited to the number of garages, which means that if somebody is renting something and they are having an event there, then they won't be able to park there. They need to park at the Ingalls or the Publix, and then they would transport them there. So that would be a violation if they start having cars all up and down the street. So that covers that. And then the nuisance, I think you guys did very well with the nuisance really covering if someone is having something that's a nuisance to the neighbors, and the HOA piece. So I don't think that the policy needs to have prohibiting a party house, because it states that if you're going to use it for certain things, that you have to put that in the business license. I think that you guys put it in there. So I don't think that it needs to say parties prohibited, because I think that's getting into some other stuff, and Nancy can speak more on that. But then we get into, what if somebody owns a home and they want to have something at their home? They're not allowed to do that? So I think the nuisance covers it.
This is only individuals who are actually.
Nancy, we can't hear you, so
I'm
you
sorry.
have to speak into the mic.
Sorry, excuse me. This applies only to individuals who are actually renting out their premises. So if you have a homeowner who is trying to have an event at their own houses, obviously they would have to comply with any and all other ordinances, but this would not apply to them. If it's someone who's this only applies to individuals who are choosing to use their home basically as a business entity to do short-term rentals.
Yeah, but what happens if a person has 3 acres of land, like we have some houses, and they're renting out their house with a lake on it for an event? That becomes an event center. And so the nuisance, if it's an event, then people will call in as a nuisance. But I just don't know how we can add that you're prohibited from having a party in this policy.
Well, I think the thing that's different is if you're on a 3-acre property or what have you, and it's a short-term rental, in addition to it causing a nuisance, then it falls under the statute. If you're a business that's a event coordinator or something along that line or what have you, you won't necessarily fall under the short-term rental ordinance. And that is the distinction. I think these are geared toward entities that are in residential areas that are short-term rentals, where you have a party that is also a nuisance to the neighbors. And I think that was the majority of the complaints that we heard, and I think those are the behaviors that this ordinance is trying to prohibit.
Well, I think they covered it. That's what I'm saying. I think it's covered in here with the nuisance article.
That is trying to address is there are subdivisions, Fairhaven B more specifically. There are homes that are rented out specifically for the fact that folks are throwing parties there and they're not staying overnight. So that's the reason that's in there, to address that specifically. It does not affect any other person's rights to throw a party.
Commissioner Wilson.
I know the staff put a lot of work into this, and we appreciate that. The last time we had this conversation, you heard me mention of banning the short-term rentals. But when you look at the issues that the residents were complaining about, banning the short-term rentals is not going to make those issues go away countywide. We need to have a policy, an ordinance, on the issues that what they're causing. And I don't think taxation and licensing is going to help with issues. So we need to look at what do we do when there is a nuisance or a blocking the streets with cars and noise ordinance. I think that's what we need to write the ordinance around. How do we take care of that? Where it's short-term, long-term ownership. That's what we have to get the ordinance written around, because we can put all these licenses and taxations and all, but most of these are in the city limits of the cities. So we need to put some more emphasis on how we're going to prosecute the people that violate the ordinance that we have in place, or do we need to increase that ordinance? That's what I'd like to see done. But I don't think taxation and licensing is going to help address these issues. So that's all I have, Madam Chair.
The thing I don't understand people in the same neighborhood. How are you going to punish someone that rents their home versus someone that owns their home differently? I don't understand that. So if you can define that, that would be great.
The complaints that we've heard with short-term rentals are more so the quote-unquote tenants of these short-term rentals, residing in the property for a short period of time, our definition 30 days, such as Airbnb or Verbo or some other sort of short-term rental organization. That's not to say the organizations themselves are at fault. It's more so the customers that occupy these spaces. We are looking to ensure that party houses, for example, are addressed as best as we can in this ordinance, as well as other potential nuisances.
So are we going to punish the owners in the same neighborhood for having a party?
No, this is not what it does.
It's not affected at all.
I know it doesn't. That's why I'm asking the question. So why don't we just ban short-term rentals across the board?
The issue of banning short-term issues across the board here in Georgia is whether or not that's going to be considered a taking by the government. And it's been heavily litigated. It's so what has happened in lieu of just outlawing short-term rentals outright is to regulate them where they can. Regulate them, which we think is a more appropriate approach here, is to regulate the short-term rentals. And these are individuals who have homes who have determined that they're using these homes as a business in a residential area. So this is not a ordinance to impact individuals who are living in a residential area, just living in their homes. These are individuals who are using their homes as a business, basically. They're renting them out consistently. Excuse me? Well, I guess the question becomes, or it's different if you're using a long-term lease for one individual or you're renting it out every single week for individuals to throw parties and things along that line. That's the nuisance that the county is trying to prohibit here. So what we don't want to do is run into a situation where we're doing anything that's considered a taking, or we run into a situation where we have to determine whether people are grandfathered in or out. This is just a circumstance where we're regulating the businesses that people are utilizing with their residential property.
Just feels unconstitutional to me.
Well, based on, we have looked at the law, we have looked at proposed statute that the proposed
we can't hear you, Nancy.
I'm sorry. We've looked at the current court cases. We've looked at the current statutes as they are now. We've even looked at some of the proposed House bills and Senate bills that are out there. And for the parameters that we have right now, I believe that this ordinance as passed is constitutional. And if it comes to a point where the court says something different or something along that line, we'll come back to the board and let you know that the court has ruled that this aspect of the ordinance is unconstitutional and it needs to be changed. But as of right now, based on our review and working with planning and zoning, I believe this ordinance is constitutional.
Who else? What other jurisdictions have a policy such as this in place?
Yes, so there are several jurisdictions within the state of Georgia, Atlanta, Stockbridge, East Point. This particular ordinance, we did look heavily at the city of Stockbridge and the city of Atlanta's ordinances.
So the city of Atlanta has this in place as well?
Something similar,
okay.
Correct.
All right. Commissioner Engel.
So just a couple things, because I have some familiarity with this. It helps us provide a framework, and more importantly, I think we need to understand it helps us identify where those short-term rentals are located and the ownership. And knowing the ownership's important, because when PD is going to be called out, although they're going to have to attend to the situation, they also need to identify the ownership of that as well. So it provides safety, and then inspections of those homes as well to make sure they're a safe dwelling place for the folks who are renting them. And that's all handled through the tax commissioner, and this is handled in other counties as well. So thank you for y'all's hard work. I appreciate it.
Prohibited?
Not that we can find.
Okay.
So this is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wish to come and speak in favor of this ordinance? Please come forward, state your name, and address if there's anyone that would like to come and speak in favor of the ordinance. Please come forward at this particular time.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Board.
Good morning.
This is Bruce Smith of Henry County. One of the things that I'm in favor of this ordinance, because right now, Henry County, when I moved here 22 years ago, was considered rural. Now we are a metropolitan part of the Atlanta deal here. What we've had with a lot of people starting to move into the county, we've had people that come here that don't respect that this is a bedroom county. Okay, what I mean by bedroom county is that people come here for peace and quiet. They go to work, they come here for peace and quiet. When they want to party, they go somewhere else, but they come back to Henry County for peace and quiet. Lately, what we've been having in the county is people like Open Door, Redfin, buying up all these properties and then turn around and turn these properties into rentals. And we're starting to get negative negative transit residents into these neighborhoods that are starting to create a big problem with the peace and quiet of Henry County. Now, taking the fact that's a small issue as opposed to what's going on here with these rental properties, because you have people that come in and rent a short term. And it's not all of them now. The majority of folks are doing things that are in context with keeping peace and quiet neighborhood. But you have that one element that will come in and throw a big old house party, block up all the streets that are already narrow in the county anyway, leave trash and garbage, create noise 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, where the PDs, different municipalities of the county have to respond to all of this, and it has interrupted the peace and quiet of that community. This has to be regulated, because these short-term Airbnbs are in fact a business. They're business. They need to be taxed. They need to have an occupational license, and also too, in that piece that I just heard, they need to be inspected if it's a business. The fire inspector needs to come in and set a capacity limit. The police department needs to come in and inspect the perimeters and everything else that goes on. Plus, there's other code enforcement things that needs to go on these businesses, like it does any other business. I'm in favor of it because it has to regulate the peace and quiet of the neighborhood. You might have somebody come in, as I had an experience, came in and rented a property and put a stereo installation business right behind my bedroom. And 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, boom, 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 bang, bang, bang. Well, we can regulate that part because that's a long-term rental. But Airbnbs, those are short-term. People don't care. They'll do whatever they need to do what they want to do. And you got an element that's really coming in Henry County because they can't do it anywhere else. They can't do it in Fayetteville because they regulate that peace and quiet over there. So yes, whatever you have to do to regulate this business as an Airbnb, we need to take in the fact that the peace and quiet of the neighborhood, the peace and quiet of Henry County is being what you call deregulated, put it that way, because you have homeowners starting to move out because conservative homeowners, people that have been here 20 years, long before I got here, are starting to sell their properties and get on out of Henry County to go find that peace and quiet somewhere else. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to come and speak in favor of the ordinance? Anyone else in the audience? Okay. We also, if there is anyone that like to speak in opposition, please come forward and state your name.
Commissioner, Chair, Commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak to you today. I'm speaking on behalf of the Metro South Association of Realtors as their current association president. I also have present in the room our immediate past president and our 2023 president. They're here as well. I have also emailed you the talking points that I'm going to get through today. At the heart of this issue, we understand that you want to address party houses, which are already in violation of various ordinances in place by the county, including noise, trash, and parking ordinances. How does this ordinance fix the problem of the party houses if these residents are already breaking existing laws? Short-term rentals are used for much more than vacation rentals or party houses. They're used by traveling nurses that come to support our local hospitals. They are grandparents coming to visit a new grandchild. They are families that are exploring a neighborhood they want to buy in, and people displaced from their homes that may be damaged during a storm. We want to consider how this ordinance can negatively impact those individuals, even if it's unintentional. Has this commission addressed the legality of creating a rental registry? Georgia's code states that in no event may a local government require the registration of residential rental property. We understand the proposed ordinance does not contain a mandatory inspection requirement, but does give the county the right to inspect the residential premises to determine compliance with the short-term rental ordinance. The proposed ordinance does not say that county officials must have probable cause before inspecting a short-term rental, which would be a violation of OCGA 367430B, which states that no local government is authorized to perform investigations or inspections of residential rental property unless there is probable cause to believe that there is or has been a violation or violations of applicable codes, and in no event may a local government require a registration of residential rental property. In addition to this, the United States Supreme Court has held that an owner or occupant is not obligated to consent to an administrative inspection unless the inspector has a search warrant. Finally, we have a few questions we would like to offer, and ideally would like to see changes in the ordinance made to consider these if it is to move forward. Number one, does the ordinance consider a leaseback situation? That is when someone sells their home and they may be buying a new construction. That new construction is not completed yet, so they need somewhere to live temporarily until the new home is built. That would be considered a leaseback. Is there a consideration if the ordinance will negatively impact holdover tenants in a long-term lease situation? You rented a house for a 2-year period, that time is up, but they don't have anywhere to go. Are we considering those things? How would this ordinance impact homeowners that may have temporarily moved away from Henry County for work? Like the storm is going on in Florida, or has gone on, and people may go there to work for a year or 2 years to help rebuild the city there. But for that time when they're gone, they want to rent their home here on a short term so that they don't have to sell that home. These are the things that we have would like for you to consider. Thank you for your time and for letting me speak to you today. We would love to work with you on this issue going forward. Metro South Association of Realtors.
So, Nancy, you got to tell us, I think what the lady has presented to us is very relevant, especially when someone may have fire damage, flood damage, damage to their homes, and then they go into a rental property, and they're there for 12 months, and they use that home as their own home. Is that short term? And what is short term? Is it for things that are less than 2 or 3 days? And the other thing is that even if somebody buys a home and they do a lease back to the home that they're in while they're waiting on their new home to be built, does that owner have to go get a business license and fall under short-term rental? So I think there's still you know, I like this ordinance, I think we need an ordinance, but I agree that the nuisance policy probably would take care of parties. But I don't know, I don't think that legally, I think we have some more things that we need to look at.
Just to be clear, short-term rentals applies to property that is rented for 30 days or less. Okay. So when people are entering quote-unquote leases that are 6 months or things along that line, and usually I'll have to say, usually leases have a provision for holdovers. So for instance, if you have a 12-month lease and you happen to stay on that lease property for more than the allocated time, either your lease renews or there's already a lease provision within your, a provision within that lease that accounts for holdovers. So those things are not necessarily covered by this because there's.
So we have to define this policy should say short-term rentals as described of properties that are leases that are 30 days or less and that do not include a licensed real estate lease or something like that.
I believe the definition already indicates that it's less than 30 days. It says short-term rental is defined as a rental of any residence or residential structure or a portion of a residence, and I'll skip through, for a period of no more than 30 days. The term does not include a unit that is used for non-residential purposes. It goes on to say bed and breakfast, a boarding and rooming house, or a hotel, residential hotel, or motel. So those things are not applicable.
So also, it does not say for residential purposes?
Excuse me? I'm sorry, if you could repeat that, please.
Where are you reading that?
Okay, so if you go at the beginning of the beginning of the ordinance, and it defines short-term rental. That's the last definition that's defined. And it said it's defined as a rental of any resident or residential structure of a portion of a residence or residential structure for a period of no more than 30 days. So anything that would be more than 30 days, that would not fall under this ordinance. So if a traveling nurse, for instance, came to Henry County and they needed to stay here for 3 months, that would not be covered by the short-term rental because it only applies to a residence that's less than 30 days.
So what if a homeowner is out of the town because they travel for 3 or 6 months and then they want to utilize their home for a traveling nurse during that period? Would they be required to register as a short-term rental?
No, this only applies to an individual who's using the short-term rental for less than 30 days. And I don't know necessarily enough about traveling nurses, but I'm assuming that their contracts and what have you, just because this is listed specifically traveling nurses, they don't have like 2-day long residencies at a location. It's usually like a 3, 6, 9 month contract that they will have with a medical facility. So if they're renting a facility, it's usually...
What about disasters? So I know a lot of times when people, from an insurance perspective, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
A lot of times when a person has a home disaster, fire, floods, anything like that, and then they have to go find a place to stay while their house is being repaired.
Okay.
They find someone in Henry County who is away or will allow them to utilize their house. Does that person... They don't do this normally, but they will allow, this type of rental. It's not on VRBO if it is on there. So they would have to go and get a business license.
This is for individuals who are using their residency repeatedly, basically as a short-term rental. If I am having a private conversation, with a homeowner and saying, hey, I just need to stay in your house for 30 days, or that's very different from an individual who is using their home repeatedly as a short-term rental, which is what we're addressing here, which are individuals who are using their home repeatedly for less than 30 days. These incidents that are brought up, like the traveling nurses and how it affects local hospital, grandparents coming into town, they wouldn't be necessarily, affected by this. This would be something for the homeowner who is consistently using it as a short-term rental. Grandparents who want to come use a short-term rental and have their stay at the short-term rental, they can still do that. That's not affecting the grandparent coming to visit their grandchild. It's not affecting the individual who's a traveling nurse. This is to the homeowners who are actually renting these short-term rentals out repeatedly, and they're, creating a nuisance to the neighborhood. So yeah, if you're using your short-term rental as a business, then you need to come register as an application. This is what this address, not individuals who are on some one-off is using their home or what have you for someone to stay in for a period of time.
So Nancy, if somebody is living in a home and they want to throw a party this upcoming weekend, how would that apply to this within this ordinance?
I'm sorry, if you could repeat that question.
If someone was living in their home and they want to throw a party every week, but they live in their home,
right,
and they want to throw a party every week for the next month, how would that apply with this? How would that impact this ordinance?
That would not impact the homeowner as long as they're not violating any nuisances. If you are using your own home in order to throw a party, that doesn't, that's not impacting you in any way. This is for short-term rental users who are using their homes as a business.
What's the difference?
The difference between a person who's...
Yeah, just living in their home and throwing a party every single week versus leasing out the home for 30 days. And that person is throwing a party every week.
So if you're leasing out the home for 30 days and you're actually there to address the issues...
I'm the homeowner, yes.
You're there to actually address the issues that you're having with your neighbors, that kind of stuff
so
like that.
So all the homeowner has to do is be at the premises and they're okay?
That's not what's happening. They're asking to have someone here, someone listed, in order to address those issues that come, because what the homeowners, the individuals are complaining about is that they're having short-term rentals. When they get there, there's no one to talk to. There's no homeowner there available in order to address any of the issues. If you're actually living in your home and you have the funds to throw a party every week, and if you're not violating any nuisances, that's very different from an individual who's there, you having a party. There's no one to address those issues of parking in the parking lot. There's no one to actually even ticket or even give the ticket for the nuisance to. So that's what makes...
Didn't you have a conversation with Airbnb? Wasn't there some conversation, I'm sorry, Commissioner Thomas, I'm going to get to you. Wasn't there some conversation with Airbnb and some of the platforms that were in support of this ordinance?
Yes, that is correct. I don't have the exact date, but we did have that meeting. We actually had a follow-up meeting the following day as well.
And so you all actually got with the various platforms, and I know Airbnb specifically because their person in public affairs reached out, and they were in support of the wording in this ordinance. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Commissioner Thomas, I know you had a question. I'm sorry.
No, it's so fine. Kenta, thank you all so much for the work you've done. This is an excellent document, and I know we're going forward in new territory, but I do want to state that to my fellow commissioners and to the public, we have the right to amend this. We may find something that we didn't cover, maybe an area we didn't think about, or some terminology that needs to be adjusted. But this is our effort to say to the community that short-term rentals will not determine how our subdivision will be ran. This is our effort to do that, and I do support it. But I do want to say that as we grow into this and find more things we need to look at, that we can have those thoughts and those comments brought back to this board. We can make adjustments as needed. We can take off as needed, and we can add to it as needed. So, but we do need to have something to say that Henry County is looking at how short-term rentals are managed in this county. Now, in addition to that, I'd like to say, Kent, and I'm not sure if you have found a way to do this, but the documents that we're requesting, please talk to our technology with our new coming website to be able to upload this information directly into the system so that our police department, whoever have to go out to do investigations, will have access immediately to all the documents, okay? To try to make sure that it's tech ready so we can do that. And the second thing to do, to see who we need to contact to make sure when someone goes to these sites, be it Airbnb or the other ones, when they click Henry County to see what's available, that our ordinance automatically pop up to say, if you're going to come to Henry County, here's what you have to follow. So that's automatically there, and people know how we're operating and managing short-term rentals in Henry County.
Okay, so I think this gentleman, or did you want to come up and speak? Okay, go ahead. You got 5 minutes and 37 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Tony White. I am the incoming president of the Metro South Association of Realtors, and I stand just to give you a couple of clarifications. I believe that the issues that you are addressing are adequately handled by your nuisance ordinances. I want to say one other thing about the proposed ordinance. If this ordinance is passed, you are invoking the police powers of the county to regulate people's real estate, their private property. Let me give you a couple examples I want you to consider. If I were to give a temporary occupancy agreement to someone who was buying my house, is selling a house to me, and I want to allow them to stay there for 29 days, and I charge them a certain amount of money for that, they're going to fall under this ordinance because it is the police powers of the state as it is written to regulate it. If I want to have a person coming from another state to stay in my property for 29 days, and I ask them to pay me a small fee to cover their occupancy, this ordinance is going to regulate it. I believe the intent of the ordinance is probably good, but there are enough problems associated with it for those people who are renting their properties out for 30 days, regardless of what the purpose is. You're taking their property by police power. We will be very willing to work with you to clear some of these things up, but I do believe that the way this ordinance is constructed, you've got to take into consideration that it does not have built-in exceptions for real-life situations. That's where our problem is. Not that the ordinance is bad, but you've got to put in so many exceptions that I can almost guarantee you will have multiple challenges in courts. The Georgia Association of Realtors and the Metro South Association of Realtors, we've presented our position because we deal with these real-life situations every day. Please take those short-term, less than 30 days, non-party concerns into consideration before you pass this ordinance. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I just need clarification. So Nancy, based on what you said, a homeowner, as long as a homeowner is present, they can throw parties every week as a business, and they won't be in violation.
No, let me just say, you said just a homeowner throwing a party, not a homeowner who has a business.
No. I'm saying as long as the homeowner, so if the homeowner leases their property out, and they're throwing a party, as long as they are present, they won't be in violation if the party isn't a nuisance in the community. But they can throw parties every single week as long as they're present at the party.
Yeah. First, I want to go back a little bit. The reason why you can tax short-term rentals is because the legislature allows it. The state legislature allows it. And that's where we come in with the permits and that kind of stuff. So part of the reason these short-term rentals are being treated differently than someone who's just enjoying their household is because the state has allowed it to do so. But yes, if you are using your house as a business in a residential area, you are probably already violating certain, planning and zoning provisions, that kind of stuff like that. But if you're talking about someone who is just living in a residence, enjoying their homes as they're allowed to do so, that is very different than someone who has decided to use a residential house as a business. So anyone who's using a residential house as a business,
it's their home.
Excuse me?
It's their home, right?
It's a house that they purchased in a neighborhood that they're using as a business. No one in the neighborhood
is going to know that they're leasing their property for this particular party.
Apparently people know, because that's who showed up here. They said that these people are using their homes as short-term rentals, and they're aware of that because of the fact that the way individuals are preparing, outwardly, they're able to determine that it's a short-term rental. They're advertising this as a short-term rental. So this is regulating the short-term rental that people are using as a business. They're requiring it to get the short-term rentals that are being used as a business are being required to register for a permit. So there's nothing that we reviewed that is unconstitutional. There are no concerns that have been raised in the email provided by the Metro South Associate of Realties that they've raised, or any issues that we haven't already looked at. We've looked at the short-term rentals ordinance that have been presented in other jurisdictions. This is similar to those, and there's nothing that's been found at this point to be unconstitutional. As Commissioner Thomas has said, if there is anything that comes up that I find it is unconstitutional, I'll bring that matter back before the board. If there's anything that we find that needs to be amended, like any other ordinance, we would bring it back before the board. But as far as this ordinance as written, I believe that the ordinance is constitutional, that it is not a taking, and it is not contrary to the Constitution of Georgia or any, legislature as it is now. Legislation as it is now.
Okay, so can I get a motion?
Make the motion.
Can I get a second? Okay, all in favor? Those that are opposed? Motion carries. Okay. The next item on the agenda is MC-MDP-22-03. This is a public hearing. The Canopy Living LLC of Lake City requests a modification to a master plan development. Kenta, okay.
Good morning once again, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and Commissioners. The item before you is a property located within the West Ridge Planned Development at the southwest corner of the intersection of West Ridge Parkway and Enterprise Parkway. This is the aerial of the property. Right here is the Publix. This is Highway 20. This is the Publix. This is the bank, and this is the CVS. This subject property would be right just south of that bank on that corner. Once again, current zoning map shows the property is PD within the West Ridge Planned Development. This is the pod map for the West Ridge PD. It's a little hard to see, but the yellow highlighted area is, rather, the subject property falls within this yellow highlighted area that's south of Highway 20. It is currently designated C2 General Commercial. And the request before you is to redesignate the property from C2 pod designation to O&I pod designation, still within the West Ridge PD, for the purpose of an assisted living facility. This is the site plan of the subject property. The development is proposed to be 2 stories with a unit count breakup of 44 assisted living units, 20 memory care units, and 60, with a total number unit count of 64. Here are some comments that we've received from various departments, including DOT, transportation planning, water and wastewater treatment. Once again, the request is to modify the master development plan to amend the pod designation for the subject property from commercial to an O&I office institutional pod designation as part of the West Ridge PD. The West Ridge PD was previously approved as per RZ 99060 on October 19th, 1999. The conditions were amended by final consent order on October 8th, 2001. The zoning conditions of the PD are shown here, which I will quickly read through. I won't read them out loud. They are also in your exhibit books. If the request is approved, all original zoning conditions that are applicable to the existing office institutional pods within the PD shall also be applicable to this property. Furthermore, the West Ridge PD has strict design guidelines regulating signage, building materials, landscaping, and the like. Essentially, the development will need to look like all other commercial developments within the West Ridge PD. Staff does recommend approval of the applicant's request to modify pod designation of the subject property from commercial C2 pod to an OI office institutional pod, again, while maintaining all previous conditions of the West Ridge PD. In addition, staff does recommend one additional condition shown on the overhead screen. Thank you, and I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, this is in District 2. Commissioner Clemens, are you familiar?
Yes, yes. Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, got a motion. Got a second. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, all right. Oh, okay. Okay, all right. So this is a public hearing, as my county manager reminded me. Is there anyone wishing to come to speak in favor? Good. Is it morning, afternoon?
It is right on the dot. Yes. So good evening, afternoon, good morning, commissioners. Steve Moore, Bass Consulting, 1350 Keys Ferry Court, McDonough, Georgia, representing the Canopy Living LLC. I'll just show you one other picture, just real quick, and I'm going to give you just a brief overview because I know you guys have been here hammering out county business. This is a better view of the site plan. I know that other version didn't quite show the building. 40, as Kenta mentioned, 20 memory care units and 44 assisted living units. This is an elevation view of the building. It is all brick, all stone, meeting the Westridge design guidelines, heavily landscaped. In accordance with those guidelines as well. So employ about 40 people in the county, serve a much needed for the aging population in this area. And I'll just tell you on a personal note, there's one other of these facilities in Lake City, Florida, where this company is based out of. My parents both live there. I've personally been in there. It is a top-notch facility, and we felt comfortable putting them in that location. Again, happy to answer any questions that you've got, but that's a $15 million investment in the area, and I hope that you'll be willing to accept this change.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else willing to, that wants to come and speak in favor? Okay, then we also have the opportunity for anyone that wants to speak in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Okay.
I have one amendment, Tucson and Kenta. I didn't see where we added in enhanced landscaping on the front, because this is on the main highway, and I want to make sure, Tucson, I see you looking. I want to make sure that we have enhanced landscaping on the main road, and then the sign ordinance is in place, right, for the sign. I saw that. Yeah.
Just a point of clarification, this property that I sit behind the existing bank that's on Highway 20.
Okay, so you can't see, it's not sitting on 20. But they did agree to follow the overlay. Okay, so we're good.
Okay, right, so y'all
move to approve.
You got a motion and got a second. Is any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All in favor? Those that oppose, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item is ULDC AM-22-09. This is discussion only, and ordinance, no?
It's addition.
Okay, wait a minute, hold up, District 2, I'm sorry. I jumped down. Okay. MC-MDP-2204, Alliance Industrial of Atlanta. Come on.
Good afternoon, Chair, board members, and citizens of Henry County. The modification to a master development plan in front of you today is for the reconfiguration of commercial and industrial lots along Highway 155, which is a part of the Eaglesbrook plant development. The parcel is highlighted in green on both of the maps. This is an aerial, and this is the zoning map. It is zone PD plan development, which is pink on our GIS maps. This is the Eaglesbrook plant development, and this is the parcel in question. This slide, which is relatively blurry, shows the overall master plan for the Eaglesbrook plant development. And the property that is in question is over here to the west. And here's a blow up. And if I can have the overhead, we have a more clear picture as well. So essentially, the applicant is requesting to relocate portions of the commercial and industrial designated pods of the Eaglesbrook PD as previously approved per RZ 9985 on August 15, 2000. Currently, the subject property has both underlying C1 and M1 zoning designations. The commercial and industrial pods are located in such a manner that the C1 designation portions are contiguous and centralized within the subject property, and those are these two parcels here, which have the green highlight around them, they're C1. But the M1 designated portions are not contiguous and are limited to the northernmost, highlighted in yellow, and the southernmost subject of the property. The applicant is requesting to relocate the existing commercial and industrial pod designations to be contiguous, with the industrial pod relocated to the northernmost portion of the property here, so both of these would be industrial, and the commercial pod being located to the southernmost here. This is a proposed road, Bethlehem Road extension, that never came to fruition because we have a lot of floodplain and wetlands here. So this road never happened, and if it did, it would have made sense to have commercial on both sides of the road, but it doesn't exist. The property is within the Highway Corridor Overlay District and will be required to comply with the requirements at the time of development, and the zoning conditions regarding the original plan development will still apply to both of the parcels if the modification is approved. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay. This is the public hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone that wish to come to speak in favor, please come forward.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Carl Westmoreland. My address is 3343 Peachtree Road, Atlanta. I'm representing Alliance Industrial. Frank Fallon with Alliance is here, as are two representatives of the owner, Dan Keener and Jim Baker. You've heard a good explanation of this, so I'm not going to go through a lot of that. This is on Highway 155 across from the Prologis Home Depot development. It's part of Eaglesbrook. It was originally designated, as you see, in the center for commercial, on the ends for industrial. The reason for that was to accommodate the extension of Bethlehem Road, which of course never happened. All this request does is relocate the industrial and the commercial pods. It does not change the size of either of them. It allows a combined industrial site and moves the commercial down to the south, where it provides a better transition toward the Publix and other commercial developments in that area. Again, it just allows consolidation of the industrial tract. It's not changing the use or the area of either of those. Staff has recommended approval, and any of us will be glad to answer questions if you have them.
Thank you. Well, we haven't had opposition yet.
Okay.
Okay. So, is there anyone, first of all, want to speak else here to speak in favor? Okay. Hearing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Okay. Is there any questions from the board?
Yeah, Kenza, I have a question in reference, not Kenza. I have a question in reference to where the two industrial pods, the new two industrial pods, it looks like there's a road before you get to the houses. Is that road, a road there? And what is that road?
Okay. It's a
Which,
railroad.
what is it?
Railroad.
Okay, okay. You see what I'm talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I have the proposed site plan of what they're trying. If this is north, this is where they want to relocate the industrial.
Yeah, I've seen both of them. I'm okay with it. I just want to make sure that where you see the houses, that people know that that's not backing up to the houses, but that road is not a through. Yeah, it's not traffic going through there.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's a railroad?
It's a railroad.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board?
Move to approve.
Okay, got a motion. Got a second? No further discussion. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, so then I think the last thing is ULDC-AM-2209, an ordinance by Henry County to amend the Henry County Code of Ordinance regarding the regulation of automobile washes countywide.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon again. This next case is for discussion only. It is a ULDC amendment to amend the ULDC to regulate automobile washes. On this slide, we have drafted two parts to this ordinance. One will simply be adding an automobile wash definition to Appendix A, which is the glossary section of our ULDC. And two is basically drafting verbiage that would separate automobile washes as a primary use from other automobile washes within or outside the zoning district of Henry County by a minimum of 13,200 feet or 2.5 miles. This language is similar to the ULDC amendment this board adopted in 2020 regarding small box discount stores, if you remember. This slide shows the 2.5 radius map and all of the known car washes within the county and within the cities. Your exhibit books also include radius maps of 2 miles, 2.5 miles, and 3 miles for comparison. Staff has drafted this ULDC amendment for discussion because we have seen an increase in interest in automobile wash development. This map only shows the automobile washes that are constructed and in use. We have a few washes currently going through various development stages that are already permitted, that are going through development stages now, that are not on this map. Staff would prefer to be proactive and get ahead of this trend to avoid an oversaturation of automobile washes within the county limits. The adoption of this ordinance would not affect properties within any of the city limits or affect automobile washes that are in development or have zoning application pending. Staff recommends adoption of the amendment when the time comes for a vote. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions from the board? Commissioner Wilson.
How did this come about?
So staff, for the last couple of months, we've been kind of bombarded with calls from developers saying, well, can I put a car wash here? And specifically in places along the highway. And we've had a number of them come through development where they're being built or they're obtaining permits for them. And, you know, staff just feels like we don't want to oversaturate the county with automobile washes on every corner.
Like dollar stores?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So this is a 2.5 mile radius. We felt like 3 might have been too much and 2 was just a bit too little, so.
So is this all within the highway overlay or just the 2 point?
This is flat across the board.
Flat across the board.
Now, this doesn't affect the cities, so the cities can have as many car washes as they want to rezone for. This only affects the county.
So we have a piece of property on the edge of the county and the city and want to put a car wash and it's within that 2.5 miles. Of course, the city's going to annex that piece of property for that car wash.
That's certainly a possibility.
That's right.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what's going to happen. Absolutely. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay. Thank you so much.
If we have any more questions or any suggestions in between now and when we bring it back to a vote, please reach out to staff. We'll be happy to take into consideration. Thank you.
Okay. So if there are any other concerns, please get with planning and zoning prior to this coming back before the board. Stephanie, do we have anyone signed up for public comments? Okay. Our next upcoming meetings, October 18th, 2022, 6:30 is regular BOC, and November 1st, 9 a.m. is regular BOC. This Saturday at 9 a.m. is the kickball tournament that benefits Hands of Hope. And the county has a team and the police department has a team that will be participating in this. And we will win. So thank you, meeting adjourned. Everyone have a great day.